Welcome to the Vertex Podcast, where we discover the humanity in artists. I'm your host, Yoyocam. I'm an artist and designer based in Stone Mountain, Georgia. My work covers anything from design and video games to murals across the globe. I'm sitting down with creative professionals of all types each week to get more into the human side behind their incredible work. I get into their life stories, I get into their challenges, and I get into what fuels their creative drive in hopes to show you that your journey might be similar and that your dreams might be closer than they appear. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get into it. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the pod. How you feeling today?
Feeling pretty good. Just been super busy ramping up some things for an upcoming show. But overall, just a really chill day. A lot of connection today, a lot of meaningful conversations. So it's been a really good day.
Meaningful conversations. What kind of conversations? I'm curious.
Well, in the studio, we've been having a lot of conversations about like what's been happening politically. Just like, in terms of the new policies that have been implemented, but also like, for example, the protests in LA and how like the president is handling that. Um, and those are studio conversations. Later during lunch, we went to Sammy's, which is a little local sandwich shop that just popped up. And an artist dropped off a piece for this art show called Revolt that we've been organizing. And they spoke about, the medical system and how they've been like struggling with certain things on a personal level, but also we spoke about like Luigi and things happening like in a bigger scale. So yeah, just those conversations that I feel like we should be having on a day to day, just to bring awareness, but also like make people feel like they're seen and heard and to feel less alone. So conversations like that.
For sure. I'm not somebody that has very many conversations around politics and around the news. I don't watch the news as much as I should. And a lot of times when things are popping off, I catch them like later. Like I hear about what happened instead of what's happening. And I'm sure that there's a lot of other people who are like that too. So like, could you give me the rundown of like what should we know if we don't know already? What should we know?
I think the biggest thing right now is everything happening with the very violent immigration policies, like all the deportations that are happening, which a lot of people will argue, like, if you aren't here legally or you didn't come into the country legally, then, you're breaking the law. And while some of those things might be true, the way the government is handling everything and the way like ICE is just very violent and tearing families apart. And just like, showing up in neighborhoods and like unmarked vans wearing like ski masks, like concealing their identities, which is something law enforcement has never done. It's just very violent and very harsh, to say the very least. But some of these policies that have been implemented and the way the deportations are happening, like literally just like snatching people up. I've heard like stories of people going to their immigration appointments, like normal immigration, like regular routine appointments, and they get snatched up and deported. It's like you expect people to follow the laws, follow the rules, and then when they do, they get deported, they get snatched up. Their whole existence here gets like turned upside down, and they didn't see it coming. They were just trying to follow the rules and make sure that they're maintaining their legal status in the way that they should, showing up to their appointments. But then these things happen and people don't want to show up anymore, you know? Um so just like a lot of very violent things happening. I mean, there's riots currently in LA. Well, they're calling them riots. They really started as peaceful protests, but the way that the government handles these peaceful protests and like people's First Amendment rights, like it's our right to protest peacefully. And the way that the government is handling it is just not right. It's very inhumane. And there was actually some protests that happened locally here in Georgia in off Buford Highway, which Buford Highway as you might or might not know, is like very rich in culture, not just like Latina culture, but also like Asian culture and other cultures around the world. Like it's really like the melting pot of Georgia. But there were some protests there, some anti-ICE protests. I didn't go, but I did see some like aftermath and some video and stuff. And people, you can see people are upset. People are angry. People are scared. So I think that's like one of the biggest things to know right now is like what's happening with like ICE and immigration and the way the government's like handling the protests. There was an interview that Trump had a few days ago, and he mentioned this Saturday, which is June 14th. It just so happens to be his birthday, and it's also Flag Day. And I believe he's going to be in DC. And he said that he hasn't heard of any protests being organized. That's a lie. They're all over social media. Like people are mobilizing everywhere. But he said anybody that wants to protest on Saturday, they will be met with full force.
Mm.
How can you say that as like president and just like without knowing any details? Like people have the right to peacefully protest. So you're saying that if anybody protests, whether it's peaceful or not, they're going to be met at full force. Like that to me just feels like illegal, to be honest.
Yeah, it goes against the people's natural right to protest. It's not like they're gonna go and destroy things. It's just a protest like people should be able to do. And he's he's always saying things that are inflammatory. They just know how to like get people riled up. And it's just ignorant enough, to be able to like get people just like I don't know. It sucks that um that he does the things that he does, or that he has the outlook on life and people that he does, because and then the fact that he was able to get into position of power that he's in with that mindset, it only spells bad things, whenever he opens his mouth. And that's so unfortunate.
It's pretty scary times. I think the positive aspect that I like see from this is that we are all organizing and mobilizing and people are coming together. People are starting to have these conversations. And I think I see a lot of like hope and positivity in that. That I think a few months ago, I've had a lot of conversations with community where we're like, yeah, everything that's happening is horrible. It's jarring. Like we don't know what's going on. And then the conversation typically would end with like, why is nobody doing anything? And I think that like was very frustrating to have all these conversations with community members and like kind of always end there. Like, why is nobody doing anything? And to see people like start to stand up and riot or revolt or like speak up. It feels really empowering and inspiring, and it also fuels me personally with a lot of hope.
Mhm. Hmm. What kind of I can understand that, like seeing the people, take action, because higher ups aren't doing much to, or at least they're not doing what they're supposed to do in times like this. So people have no choice but to take it up upon themselves to be the change they want to see. And said that it fills you with hope. What are you hoping to see happen from this?
Positive change, positive change, and kind of really us kind of seeing like as a collective, um, the people in America proving to ourselves as a collective and a community that we do have power. Because I think a lot of times people tend to think like, oh, well, what can I do? Like, how can I make a difference? Like you showing up, speaking up, um, posting about things, like spreading knowledge, spreading awareness, like all those things make a difference. And it's kind of like a ripple effect, like one person starts to speak and then a few weeks later, a few days later, however long it takes, other people are talking about the same thing. Um, and I think that's just how we work as a society. It always starts, with a small group, and there's been resistance like groups forever. Like I think America is like known for its resistance in certain time periods. But it sometimes it feels like history is repeating itself. Like, I think a friend told me, I haven't fact checked it or looked into it myself, but they told me that they have plans to build a immigration internment camp here in Georgia, one of the largest ones in the country. And that's scary. And thinking about like, what they did to the Japanese in like the 1940s and how they, riled them up and like put them in these camps because they were scared of them. So it's like it really just sometimes feels like history wants to repeat itself. And I think like everybody's standing up for the things that are happening, the violent things that are happening, kind of just like shows us that we have power to make a change, to make a difference. And the longer we stay complacent and don't speak up and don't show up to these protests, these rallies, don't have these conversations on a day to day with like our community members, then shit, they might win. History might repeat itself, but we can't let that happen.
It's scary, man. It's scary to think about uh, that kind of going like another cycle. But I think that it is hopeful that it seems like each time it does repeat itself, it's met with more and more resistance each time. And the fact that even things are going around now to help increase awareness and increase support on the resistance, and then even keeping it like doing more things to integrate it into real life and not just have it be like a social media thing. Even like the show that you were talking about before, the revolt show. What is that show?
So we're calling it an anonymous protest show. So we invited and also had an open call for local Atlanta artists to anonymously share political artwork, whether it's about how they feel, about some of the policies that they've seen, some of the things that they personally experience, like whatever it is, as long as it's like politically inspired, we want them to have a safe space to express themselves and to have a voice. And the anonymity part came from wanting to keep our community members safe. Um, we've had a lot of conversations with like other people on our social media where they ask, like, why does it have to be anonymous? While in a perfect world, I wish, it didn't have to be anonymous, but sometimes it feels like the First Amendment is quickly dying and like we're losing our right to be vocal about things. There's so much censorship happening. And I think kind of going back into like the whole immigration climate that's currently happening, immigrants are scared to speak up. Like people that are currently in an application process and a visa process or whatever it is, they're scared, and it's like a tangible, like real fear that has real consequences. Not too long ago, there was an immigration policy that was implemented where, I don't know if it was directly towards like student visas, like students that were coming here on visa, but that whole application process, they implemented a policy where if you had your application, they would go onto like your social media platforms and look through all your social media to let that also be like a deciding factor whether or not your application got approved or denied. And
Mm.
that's just like so scary. Like I know personally some community members that don't like immigration posts or political posts. They don't comment, they don't share, they don't do anything. Like they're so scared to the point where like even if we have conversations like this via DM, they won't send text. They'll send voice messages. So it's like less likely for it to get tracked somehow. But like that's the real fear that I'm talking about, and which could lead to like it altering your existence here in America or anywhere in the world. I mean, if your application gets denied and you're here on a visa, like you got to go back to your country, wherever that is. And who knows if like those countries are safe. Like 9 times out of 10, an immigrant came here because it was their last option. You know, they might have fled their country for economic or even like socioeconomic reasons. Maybe they didn't feel safe there. Maybe there was like a war there. Um, so there's like real reasons why people are scared to speak out, and that was why we wanted to push the anonymous aspect of it. Um, but revolt is really intended to create almost a ripple effect in our community. I mean, there's so many galleries here, and I love these galleries. I love the art community. But I don't really see too many gallery or like art spaces having these types of shows, and it almost feels harmful to not do that. Like there's some pretty big galleries that I don't I go to these spaces and I don't have these types of conversations there. Like you said, they feel very superficial. And even like the galleries themselves or like the people that operate them are silent. And I just I can't fathom the idea of being silent right now. It almost feels even worse than being like vocally on the other side, because it's scary to think about like, okay, where do you stand then? Am I safe around you? Am I safe to be in these spaces? So we just really wanted to create a safe space where artists felt they could express themselves about everything that's been happening and hopefully spark some sort of positive change and create a ripple effect to where other people start doing these things.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it's gonna do because a lot of times I think that when people are silent like that, it's because they're also scared to like take a side and they're afraid of like the the consequences that getting on a specific side might have. But then the second that they start to see people standing up, you know, to speak on what they need to speak on, and they're like, oh well, they did it and they're okay. Well, let me do something or let me try, you know. And so I think it's very brave of you all to even organize the show. And I think it's going to do exactly that because if it's one thing I know about Atlanta's community is that like we we always like it's a lot of different groups throughout the city, but we're all like one huge family, one huge like community. So I think all it takes is like one domino and then the rest will just start to follow suit. So I'm hoping that's what happens with this too.
Yeah, me too. That would definitely be such a positive change in our community. And you know, like you said, our community is so tight knit and it's so diverse too. I think even more diverse than some of the cities that I've like been in and traveled to. It's so diverse and so tight knit. It feels like a melting pot here. And to, you know, spark that change, it like everybody here has such a different perspective. We all come from different places, we have different experiences. And so the fact that we can all like coexist in one city and one space and like share that space is really beautiful to me.
Yeah. No place quite like Atlanta. You know, like there's it's an amazing place for better or for worse.
Yeah,
It-
sure.
it doesn't even feel real sometimes. Like I oftentimes will look at videos on like ATL Scoop and you'll just see some of the wildest stuff. And you're like, is this a real place? You know, or I'll even if I fly back from somewhere and I
Yeah.
know I'm home because I'll see chicken bones on the floor in the airport. You're like, what is this? And you know, it's just it's amazing the kind of events we throw, the type of people we have, the we have like the hustle bustle of a city, but then we also have like the slow pace of like a southern place. You know, so
Mhm.
it's like naturally a blend anyway. So it has no choice but to have, you know, a blending of people too.
Yeah. No, it's a really cool spot. I love it. I definitely spent some time away from it, and I think being away from Atlanta definitely made me appreciate it more. You know that phrase, like you don't know what you have until it's gone, and it was never gone. But just being away for some time definitely made me like appreciate certain things. And also coming back, I started to say yes to things in the way that I would say yes to things when I travel. Because like being here, because I've like lived here my entire life, I kind of like you get in this mentality of like, oh, like I'll do it later, or I'll go to that event later, or I'll go to that thing later. But the time is now. Like, why not do it now? You know? So I started to kind of operate in that way and move in that way when I got back. And one of my like goals for this year was to like say yes to as many like art opportunities as I could. And man, it's been incredible. Like I really feel like I have this momentum going and also like tapping into like different spaces and different communities and just trying different things. It was a good motto for me to implement for this year. Just like saying yes and showing up and not kind of putting it on the back burner only because like I live here again and I know it can maybe the event or the thing will still be there tomorrow because this is home for right now. But I don't know. One thing my mom has always told me is like tomorrow's never promised.
Yeah, that's real. That's very real. I think people they'll like know it, like they know it, but they don't. I don't think they understand the gravity of that statement. Because it's like tomorrow's never promised, but we keep getting tomorrows until you don't,
Mhm.
and then they're like, oh, they get reminded of the seriousness of that because it's really like that. You have to make sure um that you don't take things for granted too often. I know that we have other things to do, or we've got other responsibilities, but as much as you can, you gotta seize the opportunity. you know
Yeah, a
so
100%.
so like what I noticed just from hearing you speak about current events, even hearing you speak about how you feel about the city and about even showing up for yourself. I'm noticing that um, you have a very like caring, nurturing, like you want to give to all of these things. You want to give to these people in need. You want to give to your friends and to your community, and you even want to give to yourself. And I'm curious to know, where does that feel come from? Because some people just don't care enough to give to themselves or to others. Like, can you give me like the earliest context of like, where does that come from? Where did that start?
Well, I'm a cancer baby. Shout out to all the cancer babies out there. I think apart from astrology though, I think it's just how I was raised. Um, and it might also be like a generation. I'm gonna say a curse because that's how people understand it, but a blessing. I'm gonna change the narrative to a blessing. It's a generational blessing. I come from a family that is very nurturing, and they're willing to like care for people that might not even be like their immediate family. So I think it just comes from like my experience with my parents and my people. Being taught that, kindness is like the way. It's probably one of the most important things that I've been taught. And also I think my culture's like that. I'm from Mexico. So that like Mexican culture of like always providing for people, feeding people, making sure that people feel like seen and welcome. I think that's kind of where it comes from.
So it sounds like there was a lot of love in the house. Were your parents like very like affectionate, or were they more so like, you know, you're eating, so I love you, or like you're clothes, so I love you type?
I think it's been different during different periods of our lives or my life. So I think my parents weren't very like physically affectionate. But there was moments. Like I remember when I was a teenager and my mom I was a teenager, so I don't really know what she was going through at the time, but there was this moment where she decided to start being more affectionate and more loving. The way she describes it, she used to be very cold and she wanted to like lean more into like that nurture, the affection. So there was definitely moments. There wasn't like a lot of like physical affection growing up, not too much. I think it kind of stopped. I don't know if it's just like it was just my household, but or just like Latina culture in general. Like once you're past a certain age and like you're a teenager, you're going through puberty, like that kind of stops. And I talk a lot about that with my friends. Like I think physical affection is so important. Like I always question like, I used to cuddle with my siblings when I was younger. I would like take naps with my mom. And like somewhere down the line, that just kind of stops, and people view it as like not necessarily wrong, but maybe inappropriate.
Mm.
Um, so I talk a lot about that with my friends. I'm like, I love being physically affectionate. Like, I like will cuddle platonically with my friends. Like if we have like that level of trust and understanding. And when I tell people that, like, they're just like, what? And especially when it comes to like the opposite sex, they're like, what? You cuddle with that person and y'all aren't like dating or like intimate? I'm like, yeah, like I think physical touch is so healing. It has the power to heal so many things, not just like on a surface level, but like emotionally, maybe even physically in some way. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think also like in certain moments where I didn't have like a lot of affection or my parents weren't very like warm in that way, I think that's also what kind of made me realize the importance of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like not knowing what you had until it's gone. Kind of feel like more, and I think it kind of comes from maybe from like getting like I can hear like my parents going like, "Oh no, you too big for that. You too big to be cuddling now. You 10, you 11, or like, nah, you don't fit in my lap no more. So gone." And I wonder why. I wonder where that comes from too, because I can even see it in myself where I'm like, I can think of like a baby. If I have like a kid and they're like 5 and they want to cuddle, fine. They want to sit on my lap, fine. But then like my kid is like 15, he wants to sit on my lap, like, make it off me. And I wonder why that's the case. Because it's still the same kid. It's still the same person, but they're just bigger, older now. So I wonder what that is. Mm.
Yeah, theory that it could be part of like the patriarchal system. Like I think once, especially for women, and I'm a woman, so I can only really speak from my experience. But I think like once a teenager or a girl starts to like mature, their body starts to change, like their hormones starts to change. So there's like a almost like new boundaries that start to develop. I think it would look kind of weird for like a 15-year-old to like be sitting on like their dad's lap or something. If like people were to see that from like an outsider's perspective, they'd be like, what's that about? So I think it almost becomes like in a way like tied into gender roles and what is expected of like your role as a gender. Which I hate that shit. Like it's so limiting. Like I don't believe in the binary.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like I even think about myself where like if I have a kid one day, um there's like the possibility like I could take like my daughter to the park and just be playing, and it's just me and her out there playing, and then like third party could come up and be like, "What over there?" And it's like, bro, I'm literally just playing with my daughter. But you'll think like somebody from a third party who doesn't know anything might see it as weird. And I think that's so unfortunate that there's already that assumption, just because of how many crazy things have happened like in the past. That's probably why they feel that way anyway, because things have like happened like that in the past. But it's very
Mhm.
unfortunate. It puts a dampener and a stigma on like on people today.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And it's difficult, because I think we want to trust people, but then like we hear things or see things or we experience things of our own that kind of make us like lose trust in people. And I think I felt like that at a certain point, and it took a lot of traveling and learning to trust in strangers. to kind of like grow out of that mentality and have faith in humanity, really, like have faith in people, like learn to trust people and um be grounded in the fact that like, I trust people enough to where like, I'm willing to do XYZ or like allow them to do XYZ for me. But I also trust myself that I have like the foresight or um the I don't know, like the ability to identify when like a situation might be unsafe. Like almost that like, that spidey sense,
Yeah.
that instinct, if you will.
Cold sweat. The cold sweat will save you
Yeah.
sometimes.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
good stuff.
for sure.
So, what else about? Are there any other values early on that you think stuck with you from from your family and from childhood that you still carry?
That's funny. I'm sure there's a lot, but I'm blanking right now.
All good. All
What
good.
about you?
Oh man. So my family, one thing that I do a lot that I think people don't really, it's not that they don't see it or that they don't understand, but they're just like unfamiliar with it is just we have this thing of like not going tit for tat with people like when it comes to favors or when it comes to thinking about the person next to you. Like there's a lot of times where if I'm going somewhere or even if I'm coming home and I want to get food, people like I think about who all would be there and I get enough for them. I get enough for everybody. Even though like I'm just getting food because I'm hungry, I get enough for everybody. Or if somebody's in need of whatever, if they need like a favor, if they need money, if they need whatever, if you have it, to give and to help, and it's and not holding it over their head of like, oh, now you owe me one, or now you have to do this, or I'll only do this if you do that. It's like just it's not necessarily about keeping score, but just like, hey, when you need me, I got you. And I'm hoping that when I need you, you got me. But it's not like we're not measuring, the amount or the value or the frequency. It's more so just like helping people just because there's somebody in need, and trusting that like when you're in need, somebody will help you as well. I think that's like a huge one. I think um a lot of times people will be surprised at like my generosity sometimes, and I don't even do it like to have for that factor of to kind of get that reaction out of people. It's just like it's just what I was raised to do. Like here, like it's not that serious. It's especially with material things, like if it's like food or with like just little stuff, like I'll be at like a festival or something and somebody asked me for like can or a couple of caps or whatever. They're like, I just need like one or two, and I just grab a whole handful and just like put in there and here, just take them. And they're like, no, no, no. And it's like, you're good, man. Just if somebody else asks you for something, give them some or whatever. I think that's a big one. And even knowing that I guess just like showing kindness to people, treating everybody with respect. The same kind of respect that you would give the CEO, you give to the janitor. Like you give everybody that same level of like attention and respect and kindness. That's a huge one. My grandmother, she used to work for Tyler Perry in the movies, and so she met so many stars, so many celebrities. She she's worked on so many different projects, and she was never starstruck by anybody. And she's just like, yeah, like, oh yeah, Beyonce, yeah, that's cool. Or, oh yeah, Chadwick, oh yeah, fine, whatever. Like, come over here. What's your waist size? Like, it didn't even matter. Like, she was like getting measurements and stuff for people's costumes, and it was just because like she always just treated everybody with the same type of respect. And I think even people who are used to more respect, they like that they got a normal amount of respect versus like putting them on this huge pedestal. And then the people who are used to getting less respect were happy because they got more than they usually got. and it really just helped to help the connection between them and everybody else. Like they just were interested in people and not in titles, professions, or in status. It was just like, who are you? And that's what I care
Wow, those are really, I think, fundamental like things that you carry around with you for the rest of your life. And kind of like you said, you don't really think about these things. It's just kind of who you are. And I can kind of relate to those. And the one about like your generosity, there was something specific that you said that was so specific that I relate to that my family kind of always did, specifically my mom. Well, actually my dad too, but we weren't, rich growing up. I would say we're pretty like, poor. So anytime we'd like go out to eat and get like, I don't know, like go out to eat McDonald's. We didn't really eat McDonald's, but just like some fast food restaurant or something. If we're gonna go get something, or even from the store, like a snack or like a bag of chips or a Gatorade or I don't know, like an ice cream, we would make sure to bring back enough for everybody else. And we didn't even know if they wanted some, but why not just like bring it just so they won't feel left out and so they can also like share in the food or in the experience or whatever it is. And I kind of grew up in that way too. And so like once I became an adult and I started like, interacting with different people from different parts of the world, I was like, wow, like a lot of people don't function like this. And it just made me appreciate my parents even more for doing something like that. Like they instilled, and I'll say us because it sounds like you're pretty similar. They instilled us in us this level of like generosity, but also thoughtfulness that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. So I think that's definitely a gem that they left us with.
Yeah, being able to step outside of your own shoes and into the next person, even for something as small as a gas station run and getting enough Gatorade for everybody. Like that takes you going like, they might want a Gatorade too, instead of like being so in your own experience, being able to think about what somebody else might be going through. Um, and it was funny. Not sure if you remember about a month ago or so, we had like a mini like earthquake rumbling something in Atlanta.
I didn't feel it, but I heard about it.
It was I thought the dryer was going crazy because I had the dryer going, but that I thought it was going off, but turns out it was an earthquake. And it was so funny. I remember I was talking to G about it, and we're sitting there, and all I could think of was like, man, I wonder who was that very inconvenient for? Like who was like building the house of cards, and then like the earthquake went off and then it destroyed everything. Or like
Yeah.
who was saved by that? Or like what I couldn't help but think about other people's experiences during that because I just know that something like that affects multiple people. And it's just funny, like hearing what you were saying there it made me think about that moment because it's like it's just a habit of getting into other people's shoes, and seeing what they might be going through, or at least being curious about it.
Such a gift to have, like to be able to sit there during an earthquake and like you're just like, oh, the laundry is going crazy. But then to like be like have so much depth in like your person to think, dang, I wonder if this like affected other people in different ways that I can't even see, that's such a gift. Wow, you're like a gem of that's incredible.
I appreciate it. I try to be. But um I'm curious though, like, so you talk a lot about about the traveling and how it has it's kind of further shaped you. Was this traveling that was like done earlier on in life, or more so as an adult?
Definitely as an adult. I went on some road trips with my family. Like we went to Florida, like Kentucky, North Carolina, New York, like the surrounding states growing up. And it was typically just to like visit family or, to do like a beach trip whenever we had like the opportunity to. But it was definitely more as an adult. But it was definitely in like my early 20s, I started like road tripping. So I think I went as far as like Seattle and like Salt Lake City, Utah, like just road tripping. But in 2023, I made the decision to leave Georgia, and I didn't really have like a solid plan. It was more so like the right place at the right time. So I had the opportunity to go back home, which is Mexico. I hadn't been able to leave the country for the past like 2 decades. So that meant like not being able to experience my culture firsthand, not being able to interact with like family members and like build an actual like meaningful, layered, like in-depth relationship with them. So there's like a lot of people that I never got to like experience or know. Like I didn't know my grandpa. I didn't know either of my grandmas, aunts, uncles, like cousins, like all of that. I think growing up in Georgia in the US, like with family, the majority of my family being in Mexico, I think that felt very isolating and sometimes difficult because, like, at school, like around other people, like friends would talk about like their grandmas or their grandparents or their cousins or like all these like big family things. I was like, damn, I never had that. Um, but as soon as I had the opportunity to go to Mexico and in a safe way, like I did that. And so I decided to move out of Georgia. I like put everything in a storage unit that I had that I didn't like get rid of or give away, and was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to Mexico for several months. And I didn't really have a plan other than like I had a one-way ticket and I had an Airbnb in Ciudad de Mexico, DF, which is like the Mexico City. So like it's a huge city. I was like more in like the southern parts, kind of like where Coyoacan is. Coyoacan is most famously known for like where Frida lived and like where she grew up and like where her house is, her and Diego. So it's very, very artsy. And that was really my only plan. Just like get there and then figure it out. So
So then, like, what is what are those like first steps? Like, whenever you, because I'm such a planner, I like to leave wiggle room, but like, it's to me that sounds like that's a plan I could never like just run with. And so, like,
yeah.
how do you like? What do you do once what's those like first couple of steps when you get there?
Ooh. I think you asking me that is challenging to think about because there was not a lot of planning other than like, okay, I'm gonna rent out this Airbnb, and it was just a room in a house with like an older woman. I think she was in like her 70s, but I chose that Airbnb because she was also an artist. She was a performing artist, and her house was like crazy. Like everywhere you looked was like art, like
Mhm.
whether she made or collected, like the whole place was art. It was incredible. But that was the furthest I had. Like, okay, I have a month in this Airbnb. That means I'm gonna be stay a month in this part of the world, and after that, I didn't really have a plan. I was just one of the main things I kept saying while I was traveling is like I'm just kind of going with the wind. I'm letting the wind take me wherever I need to land. That's where I'm gonna land. And it's also like it tickles my brain to hear you say you're a planner because that's how I used to be. I used to be like spreadsheet planner. Like we're gonna get there at this time, check in our hotel. At this time, we're gonna check out and go do this activity, like down to like the hour. I had everything planned. And I think I started growing out of that through like therapy. I've been in therapy for almost like going on 5 years now. And I think that was like a big part of me that desired and like felt like I needed to have control. Um, and that desire for control came for like the desire to have safety. So I felt like if I had control, then I was safe because I was in control. But as I started to like go through the motions of therapy and do like the inner work, I started to kind of grow out of that. And the travel, like just moving to Mexico and not having a plan other than like I'm gonna be in this Airbnb for a month and then I don't know. I think that was like such a turning point for me. And also like I proved to myself that I could do it. It was scary. I think I booked the Airbnb when me and you were assisting Kilimari at a mural in the
Mm-hmm.
city. That's when I booked the Airbnb and I was like freaking out. I was like telling Kilimari like it's not working, it's not letting me like book it. And then like I was in communication with the host and like it was just like a difficult time. And I think I ended up having to book it and then it refunded and then I had to do it again. So it was like a whole thing. But I remember like Kilimari like speaking a lot of like stillness in me. Like I was so anxious. I was so anxious. And like one of the main things I was anxious about was like leaving Georgia, especially like because I felt like I was so new to the scene. You know, I was trying to put myself out there. And I was like, I don't know if I should leave. Like I'm kind of like an emerging artist here. If I leave now, like, what if people forget about me? What if I don't like have as many art opportunities? And one thing he told me is like, yo, like, this is your home base. Like, no matter how long you leave, this is home base. And those words like kind of always stuck with me. And it gave me a lot of comfort knowing that like I had somewhere to come back to in a sense.
So you were going because you were trying to like reconnect with family out there, but it doesn't sound like that. Oh, you were trying to do that. Okay.
Like meeting my family was incredible. Like I cried so much. It was one of the most like, emotional experiences of my life. Like not only did I cry, but like my family members cried to see me because the last time they had ever seen me was like a teeny little baby, a teeny little 4-year old. But to see like this whole new person, like this grown ass woman, and also like I have all the piercings and all the tattoos, so they were probably like, whoa. And I did have like some experiences, like specifically, I remember one of my aunts from my dad's side, or actually both. Um, Interesting lore with my family. My parents, their siblings also married. So technically, like my cousins from my mom's, that side of my mom's, like that aunt, they're technically like my cousins, but also like my siblings in a way, because like genetically we're like kind of the same, if that makes sense.
I'm a
Um,
little confused. Can you explain it one more time?
yeah, so my mom and my dad, they married and had us, their
Hmm.
children. My mom's sister and my dad's brother also married each other.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got you.
So that makes like sister, cousins, brother, cousins almost.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's weird.
It's interesting. It's interesting. There was
I mean,
something like that in my family. My great aunt and like my great aunt's son. So I guess what like my cousin or uncle some kind of way. Like he's in my dad's generation.
okay.
His wife, like he got married to somebody. Her dad ended up marrying his mom later.
Her dad is not. Whoa.
Yeah, like later on. It was like they were both like they're both older now. They're like in their 80s, but they got together like in their 70s, like after the fact. It's interesting.
Wow. Did they know there was like that connection?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know how long like I don't know if they were like peeping each other the whole time or if it was like just all of a sudden. I have no idea. It was just I remember one day we just found out they were together. It was like it wasn't it's like I guess, like
Yeah.
what do you say to
And also, they're old, so it's like, live your life.
yeah, it's like, if that make you happy, go for it, man. What am I supposed to say to that?
Yeah. It was super beautiful though, to reconnect with a bunch of people that knew me from a different time. That specific God that I was talking about though, like I could feel there was like hesitancy. Like I remember one time specifically, she told me, she was like, you're not the same Lucero, that's my given name. You're not the same Lucero that I remember.
Mm,
And like I remember feeling a little bit of hurt because I don't know, it almost felt like she was having a difficult time like accepting who I was.
mm,
And that was like one of my biggest concerns, like going home and not being accepted, not even just like from my family, but also I think like as a kid who grew up in the US and had like that Americanized upbringing, but then going home and like not really relating to people as much as I would have liked. Like, you know, their what's that word? Their like lingo, their slang is different, the way people speak is different, the way they dress is different. Like there's so many differences. And I remember like growing up and feeling like so isolated as like an immigrant. And having that specific experience, like there's a phrase that captures that experience well that a lot of Latinas use. It's in Spanish. It says ni de aquí ni de allá, and it
they
means
can't
like
know
not
there.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's this, like, state of limbo of, like, not feeling like I belong in the US, but also not feeling like I belong in Mexico. One, because, like, I hadn't been there, I hadn't experienced, like, time there. So to hear my aunt say that, it, like, kinda hurt a little bit, and I was like, "Damn, like, this is who I am now, and, like, I can't go back and be the 4-year-old that you remember." So but she definitely warmed up, for sure.
Interesting. Hmm. Was she, did you catch that same type of response from other family members too?
So much. I did feel like some tension almost, some like hesitancy from my dad's side of the family. But that's because like there's a lot of drama there in our family and like some of my family members from my dad's side, they don't think I'm like biologically his child.
Mm,
So I think just because they have that like idea that that could be a possibility, which is not. Um I don't know. There's some like tension or friction there. And when I was like living in my pueblo, um I had like family members from my mom's side of the family. They would just like randomly show up at the house and be like, "Oh, we heard you were here. We just wanted to meet you." Like nobody from my dad's side of the family did that. And I think that was like pretty like hurtful too. I was like, "Damn." I don't know. It just like felt like this like lack of acceptance. But my cup was like filled in other ways too, you know?
it sucks that the kid has to get the short end of that stick because I mean the kid didn't ask to be here, you know,
Yeah.
and but they're here and they just want love and acceptance from their family like anybody else would. But then like they're having to pay for like other people feeling uncomfortable, feeling weird about a situation, and that just sucks that was the case, you know.
Yeah. And I think it's something that like almost is passed down like generationally. I think just like thinking about the history of like my ancestry and how like it was very violent, like the Spain colonized Mexico and then like that was a whole thing. But there's just been like so much violence in our history of like going through colonization and like having to kind of like change your whole existence and like erasure of like languages, erasure of culture, erasure of traditions, like all of that I feel like can kind of get passed like generationally through like our DNA. Like I know a lot of people talk about like generational curses and all that stuff. Like I think trauma can be passed down. um, so I think a lot of that coldness that can kind of come from like my people um comes from those things. Like I wish like I spoke my indigenous language and I've like set a goal to start like teaching myself slowly. And it's hard, you know, learning a different language is hard, and there's like tools and resources that will help, but for like an indigenous language, it's even harder because like it's not on Duolingo. It's not like you can just like find a tutor anywhere. Um, I wish like my grandparents would have taught my parents that, who then in turn would have taught me, but it kind of stopped with my grandparents. There was like the shame that existed in the language. And it's not their fault. Like there was when I was in this museum of like indigenous people in the northern part of like Ciudad de Mexico. I remember reading something that was talking about how like there was government funded programs to get indigenous people to stop speaking their language. Like, you know, schools would force kids not to speak their language, and um if they did speak their language, you know, they were met with like violence,
Mm.
like violent consequences. So just certain things like that, like, you know, being like socially shunned or ridiculed or made fun of or treated poorly just because you were different. Like, all those things get passed down, and I don't blame my parents, my grandparents for not teaching my parents our indigenous language. I just wish, you know, they would have. And so, like, one of my goals as a person in my family is to bridge that gap. So I want to learn my indigenous language so then if I ever have kids, like, I can also pass that language down, you know, because learning Spanish is cool. You know, I love speaking Spanish. But it's, you know, my colonizer language. It's not my language for real. So I want to like reclaim those things. And that's also like one of the experiences I had traveling was learning to reclaim what's ancestrally mine. And, you know, those things like empower me. And I kind of started to implement those things in my art as well. So that's been like super empowering too.
What is your indigenous language?
It's called Otomi.
Mhm.
I wish I could like say a few words for you, but it's mostly from like the Otomi people, like the Ñañu people. And it sounds like nothing like Spanish. Like one word that I have always remembered because my mom taught me it is hamadi, and hamadi means thank you. And the Spanish word for thank you is gracias. So like they're not even like nowhere closely related.
Right. It's completely different phonetics. So,
Yeah.
how are you teaching yourself this language then? Are you like reading books?
Yeah. My friends, when I was in Hidalgo, my friends like gave me poetry books and like just they would like share PDFs with me that would like have like kind of like a dictionary, like they had translations. Um, I've also been lucky to like find some like websites online. I recently stumbled on this Instagram where they like will do translations as well, and it's so cute. They do like these reels with like the words and like little like animations, but it's somebody's grandma that is like saying doing the translation. So I just think it's like the sweetest thing ever.
Mm. How are
Mhm.
you practicing? Do you know people who also speak the language that you practice with?
No. But I think that's one thing I want to look into. Ideally, I would like look for an immersive experience or create an immersive experience for myself where I find a family that is willing to like house me for like a few months and I just go live with them and they speak the language. And because they speak the language like on a day-to-day basis, like I would hopefully learn through immersing myself in the language. That's like my goal. That would be like amazing if I found somebody that spoke the language and would be down to like let me live with them.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. It's nothing like actually going to the place or just being surrounded by people who speak the language. Like, I started learning French in 2021, February, and I studied for like probably like a year and a half. I went over to Europe in June of 2022,
Mhm.
and I had been studying like, and I went hard. Like, I wasn't just Duolingo, and like I had found like a language partner. I had like mad flashcards. I'm reading books. I'm listening to videos. I'm watching Peppa Pig in French because I'm like, that's how the babies learn it. Shoot, that's how I'm gonna try to learn. I'm listening to music. Um, I'm on like different apps and stuff, just trying to speak to people, making a fool of myself at the market like every other week. And and I thought I had gotten like really good at it. But then I went to Paris and like it was like I knew nothing. And over time, I think the stuff that I was learning started to catch up with my experience there. It was more of like a culture shock than like a oh I know nothing. It was more like oh everything's slightly different from what the books tell me. And
Hmm.
and like I was only in Paris for like 4 days. And by the end of the fourth day, I jump in an Uber to get back to the airport, and my Uber driver speaks no English at all, and I'm talking to him just fine, like going back to the airport. Now we're not discussing in-depth topics and everything. Like I'm not that nice, but it was, there was no struggle in communicating whatsoever. And it was like just because of those 4 days being there and being surrounded by all the language, like you can't help but learn.
Yeah, huge difference. I think I call myself a fluent Spanish speaker, but then going to Mexico, I was like, oh shit, I'm kind of embarrassed. Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny. It's so funny how that is. Like you'll I feel sorry for people learning English, not gonna lie, because English is kind of crazy, especially now with like meme culture and these little words that people make up and like riz and lit and like these are things like they don't make any sense. They like there's
Yeah.
no real grounded like lore behind these words. It's just memes. It's just like hype talk and it's words that get used every day. And so like I feel so bad for people trying to learn English in this day and age because it's probably so frustrating. Like to say something's like that's hot, that's cool. And then there's like that's cool and that's cold. It's the same thing. And they're like, but the words are opposite, but they mean the same. And you're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Like the infamous when people say like, yeah, no, or like, no, yeah,
Yep. Yep. And I'm telling you, it's got to be bad. But I guess all languages have little things like that though, where like the words just don't really make a lot of sense, or that's just the way it is. There's no reason as to why, but you just have to learn that part of the language too, which is interesting. Mm,
yeah. True.
hmm, hmm. And I'm curious to know about how you I know that you said I read in an interview you had that Atlanta did a good job of helping you grow and become the artist that you are to where um you could properly share and express your artwork with the rest of the world whenever you went traveling. And so I'm curious to know like what did Atlanta what did Atlanta equip you with? What was on your belt that Atlanta gave you when you left?
Mm, I think the my community here taught me a lot about like connection. And even when I was like, the new kid and like was being introduced to all these people, I think the way people did that was like such a learning lesson for me too. Cause it taught me like a lot of like community building, but also networking. That is like one of the key things as an artist. Like you have to learn how to network. And I think I learned that here. Learn how to like really grow out of my shell, how to like overcome my anxiety and how to connect with people on a deeper level, like not just surface level, like really allow myself to be seen and like make myself vulnerable, but also like I think learning how to feel others see, I think that's
Mhm.
like one of the key things. And I mean apart from that, like I think it was like a good place to have like an introduction to an art scene. Cause man, you go to like LA and they're sharks, like it can be so intimidating. So to be somewhere where, there's like Southern hospitality and like, people are nice here. I think that was like a really good intro to like, dipping my toes in like the art community and experiencing that. And I think the biggest thing was like just really seeing how the communities here operated. Specifically, I will say specifically like the mural community. People are so nice and people genuinely like want to spread knowledge and like want to put you on. Like it was like a lot of you guys, like I feel like Ara was like definitely like one of the first people that like took me under her wing, was like, showing me the ropes and like just her generosity. And like one of the first things she told me was like, like the people that taught me, they were like paying it forward. And I think it's like not only out of respect, but also like it's my duty to also pay it forward. And that was just like so ingrained in my mind. So like anytime people show interest in like artwork or like murals or even the community, like it's my duty as like somebody that was also taught this way to like pay it forward. Like it's all about community. And I think that's like one of the biggest things that I learned here. Like I think outside of the art community, the only other community space that I had ever experienced was like in Texas when I was like my skater days, when I was like learning to skateboard, going to the skate park every day. Like that was my first experience and like having like a friend group in the community. And apart from that, it was like the Atlanta art scene. Like I think outside of that, I never really knew what community meant. And as soon as I like learned it, man, I became addicted. I was like, I love community. I love community building. And that's been one of like my missions in as like an artist. And I think that's why like I became so um I think connected with like, the high contrast group like Dosa and Raz, like they're all about community building too. So like when I felt like I found the people that I connected with on that level and like we were kind of on the same mission, I was like, y'all are my people.
Yeah, they're definitely all about just building and growing together. You know, they're so welcoming of anybody and everybody who was willing to be a part. And I think that part was the most important, or like the most like beautiful aspect of high contrast as a whole. Um because it can get kind of clicky sometimes. And the fact that you have an organization that's so welcoming of all, it's really refreshing in that in in a place where a lot of people kind of have to like they have to like earn their like place, or like, how do I explain that? Like you're having to do kind of like prove yourself in a way, not necessarily to be helped, but more so to like, if you want to be a part of something big, or if you're trying to be in this show, or if you're trying to be, at this fest or whatever, it's like a lot of times people have to have some sort of uh just career, or like establishment, or notoriety or something. But you know that's a place where people can grow and build right next to people who have like huge careers, but then you're just starting, and like everybody's treated the same way, and it you can learn so much from newer people, and then
Mhm.
vice versa. It's like, I think it's the best way to do it.
Yeah, 100%. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of what you were saying about your grandma working in like, Hollywood or being at the Tyler Perry studios. Treating people, the same people, regardless of like where they come from or, how many shows they've done or how many followers they have on Instagram, like treating them the same way with like the type of like respect and love that everybody. And I think that's what high contrast is all about. Like one of our missions is to give new artists a platform. And like he in the Fortuna show and like other shows or other things they've done, like the Atlanta Crossroads Mural Festival. I think there was maybe three, like four artists that I can think of off the top of my head that was their first mural and first mural festival. So like to
Mm.
have her work, being shown with like these huge artists, like, like you, like the Lotus Eaters, like Dosa Raz, like all these other like, artists that do Forward Warrior or do murals like as a career. To be able to like paint with them and like learn from them, I think it's so rewarding. And it kind of like ties into the whole like paying it forward theme that I was kind of going with. Um, so yeah, I think it's such a beautiful like space. And even like the weekly Tuesday meetings, like I tell people like, show up, bring artwork if you want, bring like a sketchbook, bring whatever you want. And if you don't want to draw and you just want to like connect with community, like that is the place to do it. Like just sharing space, sharing community, sharing knowledge. Um, we really just like having fun. Like one time in our high contrast group chat, I think somebody sent a video of like a bunch of people in like cardboard costumes, and somebody responded and they were like, "Oh, we should do that." And I was like, I sent eye emojis. I was like, I got a bunch of boxes, cardboard. And like literally that same night, it just happened to be a Tuesday or maybe it was a Monday. But within like that same week, we ended up like bringing cardboard to high contrast. We brought like scissors, paint, tape, like just a bunch of supplies. And everybody, whoever wanted to join, could join. And like we all made masks. We like had
Right.
fun. We're a community. Like it felt so refreshing because it really just felt like we were playing with our friends.
Yeah. That's when that creativity, I think, is the best. Um,
Mhm.
I know as adults and as professionals, we're oftentimes in a creative space and we're like either actively trying to improve some sort of skill we're weak at, or we got to make something that's going to sell, or we have to do something that's going to prove something, or whatever, trying to push the limits always. But I think that we forget that these things started off as like play. For a lot of people, artwork started off as play. I think that's like when you're gonna get the most genuine and the most fulfilling um gains and like rewards from your creativity, is because it's how it started. It's like the original way, to do it is just playing around. And it sucks now as like when you can't quite get to that place. Like I think as creative professionals, like we definitely should carve out more time to just have that, even if it's not every time, if it's just like, once a week, once every other week or something. We need that kind of time to be able to just really dive into like that childlike feel. I was talking to my friend about this the other day, where it's like we're trying to get back to how, not necessarily how it used to be, but operate with those tools, or like work from that space of like have it be the little kid that's got the steering wheel right now, and not the person trying to be Instagram famous, not the person trying to make $1 million, not the person trying to get into X gallery, the kid that was in the back of the classroom. Like give him all the tools that you've built over time, and see what he makes, or she makes.
How do you how do you think like how do you think it's a good way to achieve that or like kind of reach that space again? Like do you have any practices or anything you do to kind of go back there?
Mm, so it's something that I've been working on. So I don't do it perfectly every time, but what one thing just to kind of get you into that headspace. I think it's more so about hearing the voice. Like it's a voice that's in your head. It's just like all the other voices, the one that wants to be rich, the one that wants to be Insta famous, the one that's scared, the one that, it's there's a voice in there. It's probably just quiet. If you can't hear it, it's probably just in the back. And one way that you can kind of get it to speak up was one, going back to look at old work, and just I keep my old sketchbooks, like even from whenever I was like a child. And so I was just going back and looking at like old stuff, or even looking at things I used to be interested in. Like I keep a lot of old like art books and stuff too. I used to buy the guidebooks for like games and stuff. Like if I got like Pokemon or like Ratchet and Clank or something, I would look at the guidebook. And so even seeing like drawings, I used to want to be able to draw, but I couldn't, watching shows and stuff. And then, but now looking at them and thinking, why did this hit? As a kid, I'm like, dang, like this was fire. And now I'm like, why was that fire? What in the world about this resonated with me so much? And so then like as you see and like as you start to figure out like the answer from each of those different things, you'll start to see a through line where you're like, dang, I really like stuff that has like really good fight scenes, or I really like bright colored loudmouth characters, or I really like, an engaging story with a really powerful supervillain, or like I really like love stories or anything. It could be anything, but you'll start to see a through line. And then once you like that little feeling you get when you kind of when you're seeing what you enjoy and like you're actively feeling the enjoyment, that's what I think is that voice. And so then it's like now that you've sensed the voice, you kind of quiet all the other ones when it's time to draw. Like let that one speak. I was speaking to George on this podcast. It was the first episode, and he talked about all of his voices in his head being like on a committee, and then he says he has a cheer stick, and he gives the cheer stick to whichever one he wants to give it to. So if we're making a piece for a show, we're giving the cheer stick to the person who wants to make the money or who wants to sell it, or if we want to make an Instagram post, we want to give it to the one that wants to build their social media, or like, you give the cheer stick to that one. You let everybody else, like, they're going to say whatever. They're like, oh, that's not good enough, or oh, that's not cool enough. Oh, that's not going to sell, whatever. Doesn't matter. We're not trying to sell this one. We're just trying to activate this part of ourselves right now. And so that's how I've been doing it, is just really studying why I like this thing, and not just if I like it, but why I like it. And then letting that one speak.
I love that. And I think that's so important because it gives you a lot of direction. Like when you have your why, like it's less likely that you get lost. And I think as artists, like it's so easy to get lost in like all these other things. Like you said, Instagram famous, money, gallery, whatever it is, like what is your purpose? What is your why? And I think that's what sets apart like really incredible artists that has like that layer of depth, like why they're doing the things that they're doing, whatever it is. I think that's kind of what sets artists apart for real.
Yeah, and the cool part about it too is that you're happy every time. Like you guarantee, if you can do the work to do whatever it is, you guarantee your happiness. So if you're trying to make a cool post on IG, you're only going to be happy if it gets X amount of likes, or if it goes viral or whatever. Or like if you're trying to make something for money, you're only going to be happy if it sells. But like with this, you're just happy because you made it. And so as long as you can like get yourself to make the thing, you guarantee your happiness. That way, like the piece doesn't have to sell. You don't even have to post it. You don't have to do nothing. You're like enjoying it just because you made it. And that happiness or that fulfillment you get, I mean, it beats a lot of like the rush of like social media, and like, oh, your post got 100 likes, 200 likes, whatever. That's cool. But when you can make your own self happy because like you did something really cool for yourself, that's, I don't know, that just hits different for me, at least. It hits in a way of like, it feels more powerful than what social media is, like, to the point where whenever I do post it, it does not matter. It can get one like, and it's my other account. It doesn't matter. and I'm still happy about it. And I think a lot of times the artists are trying to make work, and they're trying to be happy with it. And they put their happiness on a chance immediately. because they're like, okay, I'm gonna share it because we're supposed to, and then it gets like 10 likes. They're like, no, this sucks. I suck. It's like, no, it's just social media, man.
Right. And I think that's like so sustainable too, because I think social media is like such a instant gratification thing, you know? It makes you feel good in the moment, but like it's like we're almost like addicts sometimes. It's like, okay, I got this rush. Like where's the next one? You know?
Mm-hmm.
If you are focusing on like your why and focusing on like self-fulfillment and why it's making you happy and if it's making you happy, like that's sustainable. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It doesn't matter what Instagram thinks. Like as long as you're happy, that's all that's important.
And then what's so funny about that is that that's usually the best work. That's the work that's fire. That's the work that people want to buy. And I think it's because you put your energy into the work. Like that
Mhm.
that feel whatever you have on you as you make work, as you make anything, it's going to be in the work. And so they'll feel it. They'll feel that you had fun. They'll feel that you fulfilled yourself. They'll feel that, and it'll make them want that. It'll make them resonate with it. It's crazy. That's where like a lot of people, they'll have these viral things pop off, and they're like, I didn't even think this one was gonna be all that. I just kind of went for it, and this was the one that popped off. And it's like because people felt that it was genuine. It wasn't curated. It was just from you.
Yeah. One of the best like advice pieces of advice somebody gave me is like social media is it's meant to be low effort. Like, you know, if you want to post, like post, but just don't spend like 2 hours editing a reel or something. Like if you like to do that, you like to do that, go for it. But for me, I personally don't like it. I don't like editing. And I found kind of like a cheat code that works for me. It's
Ooh,
like I'll
what's
go
the cheat?
Instagram has like I don't specifically remember where it is, but if you go like on your profile and you go to like the professional options, if your account is set up in that way, there's this the one part of Instagram that's like, inspiration. I think it's called inspiration or something like that. And you can go to this area where they have templates for you. So they're like real templates that you can use that people have used. So like, and it doesn't even have to be on that page. Like you can find a random reel that like maybe went viral or that you really, really like. Maybe they use like a song that you really like and like they did like the transitions to go along with the audio. If in that reel settings, like, they have it to where they can you can use it as a template, you can literally click use template and just, like, select your clips, and Instagram will do all the work for you. That's what I
Mm,
do. I don't even spend time
dang.
editing video anymore. I just use these templates, and I'm like, "Alright, I'm done. 10 minutes. Let's go." Like, because I hate posting,
Yeah.
and, like, I really love we're having this conversation. I kinda felt like that way about a mural I just did, maybe like a month ago in EAB, East Atlanta Village. So
Hmm.
right in front of God the building right in front of the Gotcha parking lot, which is a business called Treehouse.
Hmm.
Um, we did a mural there that was, the theme of the wall was community over competition. And the person that organized it is Eric Nine, and he basically, like, invited a bunch of artists, which I love that he invited, like, us because we're all, like, part of, like, different micro communities, and we all kick it, we're all friends, but, like, we all might, like, have our own little groups that we, like, regularly hang out with or regularly do things with. So to all like, have everybody on that wall that has, like, different styles, different backgrounds, it's like whatever. It was so empowering. It was so, like it really filled my cup. And for that mural, like, I didn't really have much of a plan. Like, I had, like, a general, like, outline and, like, a color palette that I kinda wanted to explore, but it was also challenging because I was using, like, leftover supplies that I had, so I didn't, like, really buy anything. I just used what I had. And so even though I had this loose plan, nothing was set in stone. Like typically if I want to paint a mural, like I'm s- I can be such a perfectionist to where like I feel like I have to fully render it. I didn't fully render that one. And it was so rewarding.
Hmm.
Like, bro, to like sit there and like go through the creative process on the wall, it was time consuming and difficult at times, but it was so rewarding. And I think Eric Nine inspired me a lot because I remember when we did Stack Squares together, which I think was like round 14 that you actually curated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Eric Nine and myself were like in that same round. And I remember watching him work and just like being so in awe and being like, damn, you really paint murals. Like, and I don't mean like just paint them, like, technically, but he sits there and like figures, goes through the creative process on the wall. Whereas like I had mine fully rendered. Mine felt more like what's that thing called when you like color color by number
Oh
almost?
yeah, like pay my
Yeah,
number.
by number. So that's how mine felt. So like watching him go through this creative process, like on this wall, I was like, damn, like you really paint a mural. Like it's crazy. It was crazy. So to watch him do that, it kind of stuck with me. And the EAV mural was the first time I kind of went through that process myself. And it was also the first time that like I used majority spray paint. I had been like intimidated by it for the longest time. So to just like have an opportunity just to play. That's what it felt like to me. It was just like playing around on a wall. And while like I knew the importance of like that wall and like I wanted the viewers and like the community there to kind of connect with it, like that was super meaningful to me too. But it was such a fun opportunity to just get to like play and have like full creative freedom. It was the best. I loved that wall. It was amazing. But I posted about it.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So you had not only did you have like you didn't have the materials that you normally worked with, and you were working with with a medium that you're not quite as comfortable with. So I know that I know that during the process, the voices were like cussing you out in the middle of it. Like, what is going on? You know we're supposed to have this. You know it's supposed to look like that. How was juggling those voices in your head? Like, how was your creative process this time versus like any other mural?
Mhm. I think just like oh, and I kind of had a conversation like this last night at High Contrast. There was this guy that came. He does this really cool thing where he creates like artwork with a blade, like a box cutter blade.
Mm,
And he basically just like has his little jar of ink and then will I think I don't remember if he had like a paintbrush, but he'll like put ink on the razor blade and then use that to like kind of move the paint around on the paper. It
okay.
was crazy. It was incredible. He does great work. But watching him do it, we are talking about it and I was telling him how like sometimes I feel like it's better, almost better when you are limited and like the supplies that you have because you're forced to kind of think out of the box and like push yourself. So there's a lot of me pushing myself, not only like learning different techniques with the spray paint that I hadn't like learned before or I hadn't seen somebody do. Like I worked a lot with like just cutting back my piece with like cardboard, like the edges of cardboard. So I use a lot of that and I watched like some artists do it. I watched Eric do it while he was painting his mural. So I was like, let me try this. Those are like a lot of trial and error and it was definitely a lot of frustration because early in the early stages, and I think a lot of artists can relate to this, you go through your ugly phase where you're like, "Oh, this isn't, like, coming out how I want it," but it's all in, like, the layering, and you just have to keep going. So I think for me, it was like, "I'm here, I've started this, like, I have to see this through," and once I got over that, like, anxiety and that, like, um, hesitancy of getting it right, I was just like, "You know what? I'm just gonna have fun." However it turns out, like, I'm confident in my abilities as an artist to execute something well. And I think just like trusting myself was the biggest thing. Like I know I can do a good job. So I just have to keep pushing and see it through.
Mm, interesting. Yeah, that's definitely how it happens, man. You have to like I think a lot of people kind of stall out halfway through. They're like, "Oh no, like this is supposed to get better and better and better." And actually, it kind of gets worse before it gets better. Unless you have everything lined up, it kind of like dips and then it gets it comes back around, and
Mhm.
people don't want to sit through that. They don't want to sit through it, especially um during a public art thing, like during a mural when people can be walking by and the piece is so huge. You can't just like hide it over a desk or anything. It's on display for like passerbys and all this. And especially when person next to you is going stupid and yours is like regular, and they're like, "This is so great," and then they look at yours and like, and then they keep going. You're like, "Damn, mine's probably rough."
And I will say, I mean, I was painting next to Nicole, Scape, and Chris. Chris makes art, and
Oh
Eric was like
yeah,
at the very corner at the very end. Nicole, bro, Nicole is the beast. Like, bro, Zaldi,
yeah.
she like came in one day that I wasn't there. And then the next day I come back and I like her wall is damn near finished. I'm like, what the hell? Like I've been working on my piece for like a week.
Hmm.
And same with like Gabe and Chris, like they worked so fast. So I think that was also super intimidating. Like I was hella intimidated. I'm like watching them just like breeze through it. And meanwhile, I'm sitting here like, I'm still figuring mine out.
Be like,
Yeah, but it was fun. It was fun painting with them. And I think I really liked that, like, I wasn't married to like a design, because I didn't have the mock-up fully rendered. I wasn't married to like one thing, like it wasn't set in stone for me. So I think like through the creative process, a lot of what was happening politically also was inspiring me. So I can like send you a picture and you can definitely post it up. But the girl characters in the little car, and she has like her legs sticking out and her arms like out, and she's just like kind of inviting her friend to like hop in her car. Her friend is like standing next to her outside of the car. And there's like greenery in the car. There's like a frog chilling in like the passenger seat next to her. So she's kind of inviting the other character to join her. And the other character, because the theme was like community over competition, I wanted to kind of do like an ode to Eric Nine. So my characters typically have like hats or something on their head. So I gave that character a beanie, but the beanie was shaped in like a elephant head. So it had like a tusk. It had tusk, it had like the elephant, the thing, whatever it's called. And
Trump.
it had the ears, the trunk, yeah. Thank you. And it was just like standing there looking like real stoic and cool, like it's blowing a bubble. So it's like kind of hesitant to get in, but they want to get in. And I made it like really vibrant, the typical kind of color palette that I use. Um, and on the ribbon, so the girl has like a long braid and it has a ribbon on the end. So on the ribbon, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. Like at one point I painted it all red and I was like, this clashes with the color palette. I don't like it. So I painted it back. I painted it white and I ended up adding these like designs, which are actually called Tatrice, and they're Palestinian cross stitch patterns. So I reached out to a friend that's Palestinian and I was like, hey, I would really love to like add some Palestinian like designs on the ribbon to just, show solidarity. And also like if anybody that's Palestinian or knows any designs from like, their indigenous culture was to see it, they would feel seen, they would feel like represented, and they would feel like a sense of solidarity too. Like to see just, these patterns just randomly and on a random wall in Atlanta. Um, so I really wanted to like honor that, just like with everything happening in Palestine, and like show solidarity and like kind of just like spark those conversations. Because anytime I would like talk about the mural, we'd have conversations like this, about Palestine. And I think the more we continue to talk about it, the more awareness people have, the more like, we don't forget. And I think we live in such a fast-paced environment where we're constantly consuming things. So it's easy to like one day talk about Palestine and then the next day you're not talking about Palestine. So to continue that conversation. And then on top of the car, like on the kind of like the roof of the car, I put my indigenous culture's design. So it's like this bird with like these like flower designs. Um, and I think for me, there was a lot of like power in having two different designs, like indigenous designs from cultures like across the world from each other to exist and take up like physical space on one wall in Atlanta, like where you normally wouldn't see that. Um, so I think there was a lot of power in that for me, and I think through just like watching the news or having conversations with my community or like looking at the things that like the posts I would see on Instagram, like I was really inspired to just like, add those to trees patterns on the ribbon. And then I've been like really uh really intentional about the designs that I put on my characters, like whether it be their attire or like for example on that mural I put it on the car, so super intentional about like having all these little Easter eggs because somebody's bound to ask me a question like, "Oh, what's that? Where does that come from?" And like I love having these conversations. And I think it also like makes me feel like seen because growing up, I didn't see a mural with like indigenous designs on it. So just to have like these things, it's like also in a way saying like, as an indigenous woman, or not even just a woman, indigenous person, like, we're here, we're taking up space, like we exist in places where, you might not expect us to exist. Um, and I think that was like super important to me. So to have that freedom to change up my design and like know that it was okay and like not feel so pressured to stick with like an original plan and just to see it kind of like come together the way it did was super special too. I really enjoyed that mural a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like that mural took you to a lot of places, like unintentionally. And I think it's something nice about that because when you don't have such a strong plan, you do allow yourself more room to kind of wander in other places. I'm sure had it been like rendered to the T from the jump, you wouldn't have had room to even do that because that's not what we designed. But then going in with just enough to get started, you're able to like pick things up along the way. They're like, oh, this actually would be dope. Oh, let me see this and let me reach out to a friend. And I think that's really cool being able to to just style through the the hurdles of that is painting a mural. Like it's not an easy thing to do. And a lot of people, I mean myself included, I'm becoming more lax with it. Like I don't need much to get a mural going, but I do like to have a solid plan. Like I don't like whenever I'm out there and I'm like, I still don't know how I'm gonna do this and this. If there's
Yeah.
something out there, I'm like, oh, I don't like maybe with colors, maybe or small details, but I've got to have like a solid something going out there, or like I'm not a happy camper. I have to do way more work at the wall, but
Yeah.
trying to strike that balance um between like really well planned, but also having some like being able to be agile at the same time, and like in the event that I want to try something different, it doesn't completely derail the process because you
Right.
can you can find some really special stuff in there.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, it is a lot more work to go into a mural without having like everything planned. It's like if you have everything planned, you can just go in, you're like, "Oh, I know this is gonna be that color, this is gonna be rendered this way." You can kind of like disassociate, but like in a good way and just like have fun. But to go into a mural where like the creative process isn't fully actualized and you don't have like a full plan, it's a lot more work. But for me, that experience was super rewarding. I even ended up adding like a license plate on the front of the car. And in hindsight, it kind of told like a story of like my last 2 years. So I know as we talked about, I went back to Hidalgo, my hometown in Mexico. I ended up writing Hidalgo on the license plate, and I think underneath that, I also wrote another like little Easter egg. So it says FVKIC3. So if you know, you know what that means.
Oh,
I
okay,
don't know
word.
what to say, but some of you know. So it was also like another little Easter egg. So, just show resistance and um be vocal about things in like a very like low key way. And I got a lot of great feedback too. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh, I saw that, but I didn't recognize what it was until later." And like when they did finally realize, they're like, "Yo, I love that." And I was like, "Man, I love that people were really connecting to it." But I think the story there that it told is like the character in the car is coming from Hidalgo, and she's like waving her friend to like join her to go on her next adventure. So I think like in a way it tells the story of like I had these really beautiful experiences in a different place in the world and I want to share that with my community. You know, I want to bring people along, whether it's even if it's just through my art. Like I want to share those beautiful experiences that I had and like I don't know, just allow people to experience them through my art or through my stories or whatever it is. You know, I love to share stuff. And I think kind of like we spoke to kind of bring it full circle, like not only sharing things like food or resources, but also like sharing stories. I think is one of the most important things. Like that's all our ancestors did, right? You know, we passed down like stories and knowledge and that's all it's about, like, you know, just sharing in community and sharing in things.
That's I think that's some of my favorite artwork ever is artwork that rewards somebody for staying to look longer. You know, because especially in a world where like we just scroll and scroll and scroll and the work, everything that can just be absorbed instantly, you know, anybody that cares to sit and just look a little bit longer and like, well, what's this really mean? They're like, it rewards a curious eye and they're like, oh, look at how this works, or oh, this actually is a nod to this or to that. And
Mhm.
that's what stuff I not to that's stuff that I try to do in my work as well, but it's always really fun being able to see um what other people put in their work. And a lot of times like I'll see the thing, but I may not always know what it is. And
Yeah.
so that is also that brings me to another question that I had where you did a wall whenever you were out in Hidalgo, I think. And that it was a character. I think she was skateboarding and she had like a crown, and
Yeah.
it was a bunch of patterns all over like her over her clothes and things like that. And I was curious to know if there were any Easter eggs in there that we may have missed. You know, because I just thought the painting was like really nice, and it was like, oh, it's just like one of the characters you made. Um, you know, but I'm not sure if there was anything else to see there.
Not too many Easter eggs, to be honest. And I think when I did that piece, I remember having a conversation with one of my mentors in that I like met in Mexico. And I showed him the piece and he thought it was really cool. And he was like, what are all these like symbols? Like where do they come from? And I remember feeling like so embarrassed in that moment because I was like, I just kind of like freestyled them and like whatever came out, came out. But in that moment, it was like a turning point for me because I was like, I really have an opportunity to be super intentional with what I do. And that's where I started to like really dive deep. I would like scour the internet for like PDFs and like literature where I could find like, you know, these designs and like books and stuff. Cause, you know, I don't have any with me and I can't just go to my local library and find them. But just like through looking through the internet, through friends that would give me like books and stuff. And even when I was in my hometown, I took a bunch of pictures of like just these designs that were like plastered on like columns on the streets or like signs or wherever. Anything that like really caught my eye was like, And then I would kind of like try to look into it and see where it came from. One PDF that I have right now is super cool because like it'll show me the design and then it'll have like a little like code or like an index. And I'll be able to go to that and it'll tell me like exactly what region it's from, what it represents, what it means. Like, yeah, it's dope. I love that one. So
Interesting. You
I
gotta
think
share that one with me.
for sure. So, but I think after that, I think I realized that like although I love that piece and a lot of people love it, I think I realized that there was definitely a missed opportunity to be intentional with the designs that I was putting on like my characters. And after that, I definitely became more intentional. I think that one though, my biggest like inspiration or like intention for that one was where it was. So it's in Hidalgo, Mexico, which is like a really rural state. There's a lot of like small towns, and even in the town that I painted that in, it was part of an international mural festival. So that was my first like mural festival outside of Stack Squares that I did, and it was international. So that was really cool for me. Um, but I think why it was so meaningful in the location it was in is because of the the design that I did. So it's a girl skateboarding, and in that town, there's no skate parks. I don't think in Hidalgo there's really many skate parks. I haven't looked it up, but there's not like, the resources that we have here, like skate parks. And there's no like local skate shop. There's like nothing really. It's like very rural. So I think my intention behind that one was like to have this image of like this cool girl that somebody who lives there could connect with and be like, oh, like, damn, she looks so cool on this skateboard. Like, I want to do that one day. And to kind of just like spark that like desire or inspiration to do something outside of your norm, outside of like what you know, or even the resources you have. I think that was like my driving force for that one to kind of spark inspiration in young girls, but not just girls, anybody that wants to see it. But I like to advocate a lot for like women and young girls. But if a girl was to see that and be like, "Damn, I want to be that cool. I want to learn how to skateboard." Maybe that would one day get her to like travel to a different place where those resources are available, or to even kind of like plant the seed of like anything's possible. Like if you see this mural of this girl skateboarding and you want to do that one day, like it's possible for you to do that. And I think I wanted to like kind of inspire that in the community members that were there, just to see something cool that's like not normal, not their usual thing that they would see, and be like, damn, that's super cool. I want to do that. And who knows? Maybe that plants a little seed, and one day they do get to do that.
There's I was having this conversation with somebody. I had it with a couple of people where we are at that point now. I had just realized we're at that point now where we do have the power to influence the next the next generation. Like we're the people making the artwork that everybody sees. And what I mean by that is like when I was coming up, or even like as a kid, whenever you see like cereal boxes, billboards, um, whenever you're in class and you see um, like textbook cover or whatever, I recently did this residency at a children's science museum. We were making like stamps, and I wanted to make a template for the stamps, like the just so that people weren't stamping on like a plain white sheet of paper. And so I designed this template, and then it wasn't until the lady at the museum printed them out and gave me the stack, like, okay, here's the template. And I looked and I was like, kids are gonna see this, and this is the worksheet. And I remember when I was a kid, I had like we got worksheets and stuff in class and all that, and it like struck me. I'm like, oh dang! Like I used to wonder who made the art for for these worksheets and for this homework or for this textbook or whatever. And it's like now I'm on the other side of it where like I'm making the stuff that the kids are gonna see. I'm making the things that when people think about art, they're gonna be able to see my work and my peers' work and just people that we're in that point now. And it does kind of put a different kind of fire on the ass because you're like, you're not just doing this for you. You're doing this, especially when it's out in public. You're doing this for everybody to see, and you're doing it for kids that might be inspired one day. And it's not necessarily to bring anxiety or fear, but more so like to let you like just to bring awareness to your own power as an artist right now, because you're like you're you literally are doing a piece that can inspire people, for years to come. And you're literally putting something there that kids will have never seen before. If they grow up in that city and they never leave that city until later, like as a kid, that will be something they have never seen before. And then they're like, well, dang, what is that? They might go home and they might ask their parents, well, what is this? And then they're like, well, that's a skateboard. What is that? And then now they're researching, now they're looking at skate content and they're like, I didn't even know this existed. And your work had the power to spark that in people. And I always found that to be like it brings a different kind of intention to whenever I sit down to make work. And I don't know, it sounds like you were in that same place too whenever you were painting that mural out there.
Mhm. Sure, 100%. I think I wanted to like be intentional about like what I painted and how it was gonna affect directly or indirectly the kids. Oh, I didn't mention, but it was on like the backside of a school, so like their courtyard.
Oh,
For the kids
yeah.
get into the school, like the back courtyard, they would have to like cross that mural and like cross that wall. So I think I thought about that too, and I was like, what message do I want these kids to see on a day to day? And I think that was like the main thing that for me it was like, I don't know. I know a lot of kids that like grow up in tiny rural towns. Like sometimes they never leave. Like that is like their entire existence. And while I was painting that mural, I kept like reflecting on my cousin. Well, we're the same age, but like our lives are completely different. And like she has a very beautiful life. Like she has 2 kids, she has a husband, she works, for her family's company. And she loves her life. She loves being a mom. And I like was reflecting on like my experience. I'm like, damn, that's nowhere near my experience. And just thinking of like, what if she had like different inspirations? Would this still be the life that she chose? And not that it's a bad life or anything, but I think the more kids are exposed to different things, the more curiosity they have to venture out outside of their norm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's everything. That's everything. Like exposure, perspective, your outlook. I mean, it can also influence how far you want to go. If you don't
Yeah.
know what you don't know, so it's like if you've only ever seen this city, you probably won't have any desire to go anywhere else unless you get like a sniff of something else that exists somewhere else. I think speaking a little bit about like parental influences or like family influences, I think that's something that my parents pushed into me pretty early on. I think it's part of what made me and my siblings so ambitious was like they took us on a lot of vacations. And I mean it was to like we went to like Florida, we went to just like different parts in like Tennessee or like nearer states. And we went on a cruise pretty early too, which was really nice. And that was like a huge thing. And just even on like the internet or like on TV, they would always tell us like, that stuff that like you can do or like you can go there. Do you want to go there one day? Like just having those types of conversations, it kind of already puts in your brain like, oh, you can like this is possible. This isn't just for TV or whatever. Like you can actually go see this. And I think
Mhm.
that's super important for for people wanting to like reach higher. You gotta know what's out there first.
Yeah, for sure. I think one time I was in New Orleans last year, and there was this like kind of like a gallery, but it's in a warehouse. I don't remember what it's called. I can look it up and send it to you. It's really incredible if you're ever in New Orleans. But one of the things that they were like showcasing was this mural project that they did at like an abandoned apartment complex. Like it was like a huge building. And it almost kind of like was structured in a way like a motel would be structured. So it has like different levels and like different units and doors and stuff. And I remember, I think the person that organized that, it started off kind of like illegally to where they were just painting without permission. But later they spoke with like the owner of the property, and the owner was like really chill. Like they decided to make it like a whole mural festival. And I think in that community, like that was like a big deal because it turned into like this whole celebration for them. And even when the building was like demolished years later, they also turned it into a huge celebration. But it was like a chance for like community to come together. But one thing that they wrote in like their statement was that the organizer believed that public artwork, especially like murals and street art, it's like in a way it's like art alchemy, you know? You're making this piece of artwork where so many people are going to get to see it, whether they belong to that community or that space or whether they're just passing through. And it's like almost changing the way people perceive the world around them or themselves. Like, you know, it forces them this like change to occur. And I really resonated that on like such a deep level. Like it almost like kind of put the importance of like intentionality behind like public artwork, like specifically murals. It kind of really emphasized the importance of like how it can affect not only a person on a singular level, but also a community. And I was just like, whoa, like reading that, I was just kind of mind blown. I was like, it is like art alchemy. Like you're changing an environment or even a person on like an individual level.
It's it's really special. I think that's like my favorite part about murals. I think that's why I fell in love with the craft because it was something that felt so impactful. It felt like, you're actually doing good work and just like making cool pictures, but you're actually doing like you're having a positive impact on the world around you. Like you're changing a space. Um my first couple murals were like in schools, and so like, you're just changing the way like these kids are just pulling up to like white walls, gray walls, whatever every day, and then all of a sudden it's just cool work now, and then I'm like, oh shoot, like that does all
Awesome.
kind of things to them.
Yeah. It changes your brain chemistry too. Like seeing bright colors and interesting shapes. Like I feel like it really stimulates certain parts of your brains versus just seeing a white brick wall. You know, that's boring.
For sure, for sure. Even like the way that the kids will interpret like the wall that you did at the school, they'll interpret that same piece a million different ways. Like some people
Mhm.
might see it as inspiration to go somewhere, some might see it as inspiration to pick up skating, some might already be into artwork, and then they're like, oh, this might be a cool character I could like draw from. You just never know what people might take from the same piece of work, especially over time, like whenever they see it and they start to develop like a familiarity with it, a comfort with it. And I mean, they can grow up and come back and like have fond memories of just that wall in particular.
Mm, that's true. And I think another thing that I really think about with murals and public art is that I think galleries can sometimes intimidate certain people, like certain demographics. And there's like a lot of people that may never set foot in a gallery. Like I remember that when I first started to like venture out into the art world, galleries were intimidating. I mean, they're like bright as hell. They're so clean. You know, you feel like, I don't know. I feel like for me, I felt like I needed permission to be there.
Mm,
So I kind of almost felt like I needed to be invited. And so I just like reflecting on that. I'm like, man, how many people that aren't familiar with artwork and are intimidated by artwork and even the prices, like art isn't cheap, you know. I mean, it's not always cheap. Um, so to be intimidated by so many different factors, I think it gives people a really good opportunity to um experience artwork when, you know, they might not experience artwork in any other capacity other than like maybe online or like through TV or something. So to like experience it in person and for it to even be part of your community, I think there's just like so much power in that, especially like if they don't have a local gallery, you know, maybe like demographically they just don't have a gallery that's close by. And maybe you do have a mural that's close by, like right down the street from you. Like it's so important. Public art is so important.
yeah, absolutely. Did you do did you do any other
You do
murals
it.
out there?
I did one in Chiapas, which is from Hidalgo. It's like super, super southern Mexico. Like Chiapas is right next to Guatemala.
Hmm.
So it's like very end of Mexico. So I did one there. I got invited by like this hostel that they were renovating. So I did one on their rooftop. That was really fun.
Interesting. So, was it a part of like a fest or anything, or was it just like, hey, we just have this wall, you want to do something, or?
Yeah, it was definitely just like an invitation, like an open invitation to do something if I wanted to. Um, and I think I really wanted to do it there, even though like I had to invest my own resources. Um, I really wanted to do it because in Chiapas, when I was like traveling through there, I got super sick. Like, and it was a combination of like just being exposed to like foreign germs and also like being in a place that was like more elevated than I was used to. And also like the food. There was like so many different factors, but I was very, very sick. Like I was like in bed most of the time I was there. I was like throwing up, like I had diarrhea. Like it was bad.
Man.
And I remember the time I did spend there and just like, being in the spaces that I was in, strangers were taking care of me. And that like just really stayed with me. Like I was in a hostel the majority of the time, and the people that like were there at the hostel, whether they like, cleaned up or like, helped people, like the visitors that were there. They had like a herb garden in the back. And this lady, she would make me like smoothies out of the herb garden that would like help my stomach, like soothe my stomach, and like
Mm.
it was very medicinal. And I also remember this other guy, he was also like staying at the hostel. He was like really young. I call him a kid because he was like 18, but he was the sweetest thing ever. And I remember the first time he showed up in the hostel. It was like a shared room. So I think it was like a dorm room. It had maybe like 10 beds, maybe. And he showed up one day and I was in bed just like feeling sick. And he introduced himself and he was like, "Oh, you're not feeling well." And I was like, "No, not really. I've been kind of sick for the last few days." And then he also met the girl that was above me, and she also happened to be sick. And this was also around like cold and flu season, so a lot of people were getting sick. Um, Bro, this guy the next day, just having met me and her the day before, he went out into the town and like bought fresh veggies, spent like the majority of the day finding like vegetable broth. Like he was on a mission, and his mission was to make us vegetable soup so we can be like comforted and nourished and taken care of. And, like, I remember the day he made it, he didn't tell us, but he just, like, walks in the room. Me and the girl are, like, both just sick in bed, and he goes, "Oh, like, I made you guys vegetable soup if you want some." And bro, he had, like, the soup on this bowl, like, the presentation was beautiful, like, he did everything. He just had us sit down at the kitchen table, which was, like, communal kind of, like, anybody could just come into the kitchen, and, like, I cried. Like, I dead ass cried. I was, like, sobbing. I was like, it was one of the nicest things anybody had ever done. Like, this guy went out of his way to make, like, vegetable soup from scratch and made it for like two girls that were like complete strangers. He had just met us the day before. And that was just like so powerful to me and like so inspiring too. I was like, wow, like the kindness in this person of just having met us and he sees like we're in need and he just like took a whole day from his travels to do something kind. It was so beautiful. And, like, a lot of things happened like that while I was there. And, again, I paid it forward, like, when he left and I was still there, like, I remember somebody else came in and they were pretty sick, so, like, I would get them food, I would, like, make them tea, I would offer them water, like, just take care of them. So, it was like, man, somebody really took care of me when I needed it. So I ended up painting this mural of a girl in, like, um kinda, like, similar to the other mural we were just talking about, but, like, different clothes, but she was just sitting there with, like, holding, like, a cup of, like, coffee or really in my mind, it was cacao, which is it's what chocolate's made out of, like, the cacao beans.
Yeah. Yeah, like coffee beans or cacao pods.
Yeah. So that's what it was, because like that's also big in Chiapas. So I wanted to create like this piece that just felt like my experience in Chiapas at that time, which was like held and comforted and soothed and just taken care of.
I got to go back and look at it again because like the newfound context, I'm sure I'll appreciate it way more than I did initially. Mm.
I'll send it. And that, I mean, it was like super last minute. I think they reached out when I was like, I already had a bus ticket to go back up like to North Mexico, and my bus ticket was already booked. So really, I had like maybe like 2.5 days to start and finish a mural. So it was like intense. I
Mm.
was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I need to see this through. Like I want to leave a mural behind.
I guess there was no like spray and stuff, huh? You had to use like brush paint, huh?
There was spray, but like when I tell you finding good quality art supplies in Mexico was hard. It was hard. Like it's not like, we didn't have a Sam Flax or like a Michaels or a Blick. Like it's really hard to find good art supplies. Like I'm glad that I traveled with my paintbrushes, because the paintbrushes that I would find there were not good. They were like those like industrial paintbrushes that
Mm.
you might use to like spread like oil around or some chemical around.
Hard ass bristles.
Yeah,
You like scrub down rust with some of those things.
I know it was horrible. And like painting with those was a nightmare. So I'm glad I had my paintbrushes with me, but I did have to like find paint and stuff.
Right. Interesting. Were there any times where you had to be extra resourceful to get specific like supplies? Like, did you ever make paint out of something, or did you have to like rig up some sort of brush to make it work for this specific wall or anything like that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The first thing that came to mind was like a sort of palette. So I didn't have like any like sort of palette or anything when I was painting. Like I didn't even for the International Mural Festival, I didn't even have access to like, I don't know, like a bucket lid or anything. Like
Mm.
supplies were so limited. So I didn't ended up finding like a 24 pack like egg carton in the trash. And so I used that like used as a palette.
Man, man, it'd be like that. I think that's another thing that's so cool about us muralists is that our problem solving skills are usually pretty dang good. Like we know how to make some stuff work. Like we especially when it comes to like our environment. It's like how many walls, you know, you'll go through where something like the lift isn't working like you need it to, or like the wall has some weird thing going on with it, or the floor is not even like it was supposed to, or the paint, load of paint exploded and now you got to figure out how to make this work without this color or whatever, and it just makes you
Yeah.
realize like it really puts your resourcefulness to the test.
Yeah, 100%. And there was a lot of resourcefulness, even in like the colors. I mean, the colors weren't as vibrant. Like I had to just kind of use what I had, what they had, or whatever was available, really.
Mhm. It kind of sparks more creativity that way, just like you were saying earlier, like that creativity from restriction, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I kept reading through another one of your interviews, and I'm very curious. Can you tell me about Huitzi and Temazcal?
Oh my God, yes. Um, wow, that's such an experience. That's I think I've mentioned him in the mural that we are just talking about from Chiapas too. It was a different experience, but they're kind of connected in a way. Um, the Wheatsea was a shaman that I met in Ciudad de Mexico, but we actually had to travel maybe like 40 minutes out of the city. And it was actually through an Airbnb experience, which I was honestly really surprised how like authentic the experience was. So it was advertised as like a Temazcal experience, which a Temazcal is basically like a sweat lodge. That's the easiest way I can explain it. And so what the practice is, it's like very rooted in like indigenous culture and is like super spiritual. Um, so basically, like in indigenous culture, they would sit in these sweat lodges to have almost like spiritual experiences with their ancestors. And it was also like very medicinal. So a lot of times if there was somebody that was really, really sick, they would encourage them to do these ceremonies to one, connect with their ancestors, but also like seek a sense of like medicinal benefits from it. Um, and basically a temazcal is like this little lodge. And the one that I was in, the shaman that actually performed the ceremony, he built it with his own hands with like mud and like natural elements. It was really cool. But basically you go in and um it's supposed to the temperature's supposed to like increase a lot to where like you're sweating out toxins, but you're also kind of entering this like spiritual state through like meditation. And the way they like get the temperature to increase is by putting like rocks in the center of the temazcal and then like splashing water on the rocks to create vapor. And so it was pretty cool because um they told us that the rocks come from traditionally they have to come from like volcanoes, and they call them abuelitas, like grandmas, because they believe that um there's a lot of like ancestral knowledge that is stored in these volcanic rocks because they come from the earth, and they believe like earth to be, a sort of mother, like in a spiritual way. And so you basically like sit in the sweat lodge, and the shaman like chants certain things, and they kind of like guide you through this like meditative spiritual experience. And it was incredible. Like I I can't even really describe too much about it because it was more so like a spiritual feeling that I would get. Like I remember at one point like feeling like I was outside of my body, and I was like reconnecting with my mom. And my mom is still alive, but she was, in Georgia, and at the time me and her weren't really like speaking. And because the experience was like so rooted in like talking about grandmas and like moms and stuff, I feel like in a way I like reconnected with my mom on the like really, really spiritual level that I felt like I was missing. Um, so all in all, it was just like super spiritual. Like it felt very, very cleansing. Um, and I remember when I got out, there was like this wolf like statue in the garden. They kind of just like told us to like go out and just like let our bodies just come back to like normal temperatures, like reconnect with like the earth and like, just different elements that were there. And I ended up like laying right next to the wolf. It sounds crazy, but I promise you that thing moved.
Mm.
That like wolf moved. It was wild. Like it was such a wild experience. Like it's even hard to like really explain. But I had two encounters with shamans when I was there in Mexico, and another one that I met was in Chiapas, and that one was kind of crazy because like I didn't expect it. I didn't seek that one out. I just kind of like happened to be at the right place at the right time. And I was actually invited by the guy that I was telling you was like pretty sick, and I ended up like taking care of him and stuff, like, offering him food, tea, whatever. Once he got better, he invited me to this New Year's celebration that they were doing on a mountain. And he told me that the shaman's name is Don Lauro, and he's known as like Don Lauro de la Montaña, Don Lauro of the mountain, because he has like his whole like place on the top of the mountain. And he was like telling me there's like documentaries about him and how like when he was younger, some like monks from a different part of the world like came and like sought him out and like took him back to their part of the world and like, taught him certain things. Um, but I think the part that like interested me the most and like piqued my curiosity was that they say that he has the ability to like um control like elements. Um, and
Like the
I think
weather, or like, what do you mean?
yeah, like the weather,
Hmm.
like certain elements. And I think the reason why that like really piqued my interest is because when I was in Oaxaca, which is a different state, they're kind of close together, but a completely different state. Um, I had this other interaction with this man who was from the Zapoteca like culture. Um, and it's a culture found mostly like in southern parts of Mexico. They have like a calendar, kind of like, like the Chinese have like the Chinese calendar with like different animals and stuff. So it's kind of similar to that, where like if you look at your birthday, they kind of tell you what animal is associated with your birthday. So I went on this like night tour of the city where they were just kind of like taking us across the city, stopping at like certain points where they had like lore or like haunted stories or stuff like that. So it's supposed to be like a spooky one. But at the end of the tour, the guy just like as an exercise that he does with his participants, he asks for your birthday and then he tells you what your spirit animal is. And when he got to me, I was the only person that didn't have an animal. So I was like, huh, that's weird. So he was like, I'm gonna come back to you once I'm finished with everybody else. So when he finally came back to me, he told me that instead of an animal, I had like a root, like a twisted root, um, kind of like an intertwined root. Like think of like, I don't know, like tree roots when they kind of like intertwine together. And he asked me like if I knew anything about like my ancestors or anything like that. He was like, I'm sure you know, but you probably have a lot of curanderas in your family. And a curandera is like a shaman, woman, somebody that's like a spirit worker or like a medicinal spiritual worker.
Mm.
And when he told me that, I was like, whoa, like I kind of have suspicions of certain people that I think like practice like, like work with like do like spirit work and like medicinal work. But it kind of ties into the whole conversation we're having about like colonialism and like the effects of colonialism and how they've affected like indigenous traditions or cultures. I think that's one of them because along with like the Spaniard customs and culture also came their religion, which is Catholicism. And through like exploration of my indigenous culture, I found that my people are very connected with nature. And a lot of like my ancestors did practice like spirit work or medicinal work and were known as like shaman or shaw women. But there became like this negative connotation that started to form. So they started calling them like witches. And when we think of witches, we think of like popular culture and how they're portrayed as like evil or ugly and stuff like that. So I think what ended up happening in my town and probably a lot of towns across like Mexico, even across the world, it's like those indigenous practices became like villainized and almost like turned or created the narrative became like, oh, this is like evil witchcraft, like, especially with Spaniards forcing Catholicism into like the society. Um and so when the Zapoteca man told me that, like there was this moment where I felt like so seen because I don't talk about this much, but when I was younger, I don't really have these dreams anymore, but when I was younger, I would like dream that I was like different elements. Like normally when we think of a dream, like we're ourselves, like how we see ourselves in like this physical realm. But like I've had dreams where I'm like water. I've had dreams where I'm like sand or like air. And it's so crazy to say that because like it's kind of hard to understand, but like I know what it feels like through my dreams, what it feels like to be water or what it feels like to be sand.
How
And
does
it's
it
just
feel to be water? I'm curious.
it's so hard to describe. Like I can't even describe the feeling. I just know what it feels like.
Mm.
Like I think sand is easier to describe. It kind of feels like there's like a lot of pressure, but it's like always constantly moving. I don't know if that makes sense. Like there's like all these like little particles that are just like always moving and like It feels almost like static, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Um, but when I would like tell people about these dreams and be like, "Oh yeah, do you ever dream you're like something outside of yourself in this physical realm?" Like I've also like dreamt that I'm like other beings, like not how my face looks, not even like human or woman, just like other beings that don't have a sex and aren't human. And when I tell people this, they're just like, no,
Mm.
I don't really dream like that. Um, so when I like was talking to the Zapoteco man and he was telling me that some in Zapoteca culture, if you have like a specific gift, and you have like that, I guess, identifier in your like your birth chart. Like remember I had like the twisted root and not like a traditional animal. That if you were born with the gift that you're able to shapeshift into nature and that like our purpose in this world is to bring balance back into like the earth through like aiding nature in some sort of way. And I remember when he told me that, like, I just felt so seen because, like, Cam, I've spent so much time on the internet trying to find like people that relate to like my stories of my dreams. And it's so hard to find anything, like, not even on Reddit, YouTube, like, nobody's talking about this stuff. So to like make a journey to like the very end of Mexico and like talk to this man that I like just met who's telling me that like, their beliefs and their indigenous culture is that. And I was just like, whoa, like mind blown. Like never outside of that, I had never like found connection anywhere else. So to find it like in Mexico was like so powerful. And so then like a month later to find the shaman, Don Lauro, that is said that he can like shapeshift into nature, I just like kept connecting all these dots and I was like, you know what? I think there might be something here. Like even if it's like just stories or whatever it is, like I just felt like very connected to something to whereas before like I was just like, oh, these are just like unexplainable dreams. But like I think I felt seen and connected to something and for it to be like cultural, I think added more like significance to it.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the most like intense, like spiritual kind of experiences that I had in Mexico. And it gets even crazier, like down to like my sister calling me the next day. It was crazy. I don't know. It just felt like so interconnected. And I was like, what's happening?
What
And
did
it
your
almost
sister
felt
say?
like, well, the day that I like talked to that Zapoteca man and he told me, he read my birth chart, I like So it was like super late at night because it was like a night tour. So we ended the night tour around like midnight. And it was in the city of Oaxaca. So I had to walk home to get to my hostel. And it was about maybe like a 15-20 minute walk. And I kind of knew the area pretty well because I had been there for a while. So I was like, okay, I feel safe. I think I should be fine. Um, Something kept pulling me to take the route that I normally wouldn't take. Like
Mm.
I already had a route, right? And something kept telling me, no, go down this way, go down that road, go down this alley. And I remember like because I was so curious about like the information I had just received, like I almost felt like compelled to like follow that urge. And that's dangerous, in a different country where it's like midnight, there's nobody outside, you don't really know the environment, you don't know the like, you don't know the streets like that. So I remember like I did make a few different turns that I normally wouldn't make. And then I just kept getting this like really weird feeling, like danger, like those spidey senses we were talking about. And after a while, I was like, "Nah, I'm not going that way. I'm just gonna go my usual route, the usual route I get to go home, and I'm just gonna go home, go to bed, and then just see what the next day brings." So the next morning, my brother calls me, and he was in the car with my little sister, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we just called you because Wendy, her name's Wendy, she had a dream about you." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, she dreamt that you were like walking down the street and you fell in a hole." And I was like, "No fucking way." Like, that just felt so scary and, like, connected to me because I was like, "Yo," like, I was really gonna, like, go down these, like, random streets that I don't know to get home last night, but, like, something told me not to, so I didn't. And so then to, like, hear my sister say that and, like, have that dream of me, like, it just felt super connected, and I was like, "This is all new information, and I'm very, very curious, but something is obviously warning me to tread carefully and, like, take my time." So I think that's what I kinda took from that, conversation I had with my siblings. I was like, "I'm curious, and I'm naturally a curious person, but this feels like it could be dangerous if I'm not careful."
That's so
Yeah, it was wild.
interesting. Like, I think, like, I'm sitting there like, man, it's so cool. Like, I was trying not to smile, but I didn't want it to feel like I was smiling like at you, like this was silly. It's more so it was just so cool because it sounds like some stuff that you would see like in a really good like story. I kept thinking about The Alchemist, and
Mhm.
he was talking about how the guy can turn into the wind, and and it all just kind of um it also reminded me of another story. I don't know if you've ever read the book The Poppy War, but they have it's a story that's it's like a historical fiction, and it's based off of it was like in Asian wartime, but there is like the inclusion of like shamans and rituals, kind of like the what is that? What was it called? The Temazcal? Yeah, like the main character went through a situation like that too and was able to communicate with her ancestors and things like that. And I don't know, it's so cool to think because I'm thinking like this is a fiction book, and so I'm not sure how much is real and how much isn't, but it's cool to
Mhm.
hear somebody really having like the same experiences. Um, and it's like, this is confirmed like from your experience. So it was just really cool to like listen to the whole story. And I'm sure that it helped you connect more to yourself and was like extremely validating, especially coming like from from your home too, which helps a lot. And yeah, that's really really cool. I'm struggling to find words to say. I'm like just in awe of the story.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty wild. I think it also kind of, like, gave me it fueled my curiosity to wanna keep, like, digging more. And I think that kinda led me to pick up, like, beadwork. So when I was in Oaxaca, I started, beadworking, and so I learned how to, like, bead on a loom. And one of my more, like, I wanna say artistic pieces, but they're all really artistic. So when I'm not making, like, jewelry or, like, bracelets, I got invited to participate in this group exhibit. This artist, Yemi Cambron, she was local here in Atlanta, but she recently moved to, Chicago to pursue her MFA. She's super dope. She's an incredible artist.
Yeah.
But she invited me to be part of this group exhibit called Piel con Piel, Skin to Skin, and she basically gave 10 artists, discarded leather pieces. Like, you could choose what leather piece you wanted to use, and you just had to kinda create something, some piece of artwork from the leather that she gave you, with the kind of the theme of, like, we were supposed to reflect on the leather, which it being actual, like, um, animal skin, and, like, kinda reflect on it and, like, treat it as an extension of our skin and our brownness. So all the artists that were, part of the group exhibit come from, like, immigrant background. So it was a super powerful group exhibit. It, showcased in Atlanta Contemporary earlier this year, and so I ended up choosing this, like, I think at the time it was, like, maybe 34 inches. It was maybe like an inch, um, in width and, like, 24 inches in length. It was, like, long. So it was, like, a long strip of leather. And I remember the moment I picked it up, I just, like, couldn't help but connect it to, like, a spine. I was like, "This remind just for just picking it up and holding it, it just reminded me of, like, a spine, like a human spine." So what I ended up creating was, this piece that was inspired by the anatomical like structure of a spine. And I really just based that off like the length. So I ended up cutting it. I think I cut it to like 26 inches. So I got the average of a woman's spine and the average of a man's spine. And just like got the average of those and got that's how I got the number 26. But when I was like researching the anatomy of the spine, I saw that the spine is so vital that it holds a lot of like our nerves. Um, See, a lot of our like nerves run across with the spine from our brain, but also what kind of gets intertwined with like all the nerves and all the like the vertebrae and all the bones in the spine are blood vessels. And so I got like really inspired just by the idea that like our spine structurally hold up a lot of different components in our body. And I don't know why I decided to use like blood, but I think I was really just like called to like, blood flows through all of us, regardless of like our background or who we are. And it's such a like vital component in our bodies. So because I knew I wanted to create a bead piece, a lot of the beadwork, it requires like a design. And so what I ended up doing was like drawing out and breaking down the molecular structure of blood, and looking at those molecules and like the shapes that they carried, and also like from different anatomy books. I looked at like the colors that were being used. So like through the different colors that I saw and also like the structure of it, I created this design for the beaded piece. And so I basically beaded like a 26-inch band that was maybe like probably around also an inch. And that was like a really super intricate design. I think I actually have it in the sketchbook. One second.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. This is my planning for it. Oop,
Oh, shoot. That's really cool.
yeah. That's kind of like the inspiration I had right here. This is kind of hard because it's like reversed.
Mhm.
So that's what it looked like. Um, and then let me turn it this way.
I mean, on
This,
this end, it looks regular, so it might be reversed for you, but it's regular for
yeah.
me.
So this is a pattern that I did right here somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, you can see on the side of it, there's like the hemoglobin, the oxygen, and so like I broke it down to like a molecular level, and then like visually, I took inspiration from those and made the design that you see to the side of it. I don't know if it's left or right,
Definitely
but
on the side.
that was kind of like the planning that I had for it. So I beaded that. And it was like a total of like 15 rows of beads. It took a long fucking time. Like it took so long. I was like working day and night to finish it because it was also like a really tight deadline. Um, but what was so interesting about that entire process is when I was beading, I would kind of enter these like meditative trances, and I got so rewarded. There was this one time that I was beading and like these like old memories of my childhood just started flooding back. Like memories that I hadn't accessed in years. Like I didn't even know they existed anymore. And I was just like, whoa. Like I remember I started crying and like I got super emotional and I was like, damn, I didn't even know those memories existed. So to be able to like enter such a meditative trance that I was able to like access those memories was super rewarding.
Do you think that it had in part to do with like what you decided to create? Like, do you think had you been drawing something else, it wouldn't have come through?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think for me, beadwork is so magical. Like, I can't even question it. It just, to me, it kind of is what it is, and it rewards me with what it wants to reward me with. And I think the most important part is for me to like remain open to it. So it's been like a really cool way for me to connect with like my ancestors and also like my subconscious, I think, which is how I was able to like tap into those old memories. Because I think one thing I struggle with a lot is like having like suppressed memories. Like when I think back on my childhood, even like as a teenager, I have all these like black spots in my mind. Like I can't remember them. Like
Hmm,
if you were to ask like, "Oh, what were you doing when you were like 13?" I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember.
hmm, interesting. But then it's kind of like unblocking some of those things for you, it sounds like.
Yeah. So I think that's been like the coolest part for me to be able to like tap in with my subconscious on like a deeper level.
And did you learn to bead up there, or did you know how to already?
I learned in Oaxaca. Yeah. I found a teacher who was local and like would do workshops and stuff. And he taught me how to do it. And it was such a treat too, because when I left, he made me like a handmade loom, which I still have and I still use. And it just I don't know, it felt so special to like know that my maestro, my teacher, like put a lot of physical energy into creating that loom for me and I got to take it home. Yeah, it
That's
felt very
crazy.
special.
Those are like items that are just those are like the true priceless items, like these are things that like they have so much lore and so much backstory and so much history and like just like you said, physical energy and um just love in it. Like you can't replace those types of things. And the fact that it's something that you're not just having to like put in a case and just admire from a distance, you can actually put it to use. It makes it all the more special too.
Yeah. You know what's crazy about that too is I ended up leaving it at a hostel in Oaxaca.
Oh
Like I
no.
think I know when I was like packing and like reorganizing my suitcases, I think I just left it and I didn't realize until I was like in Ciudad de Mexico, which is a super long distance away. Man, I cried. Like there was no way for me to get it back, but luckily I had made like a friend there and he was local to Oaxaca, so he was able to go retrieve it and I don't remember. You know what's so crazy? I think what ended up happening is I didn't get that loom until like probably a year later. But what ended up happening is that an art homie from Atlanta, he was gonna be in Oaxaca. So I like was like, "Hey, I really need this thing back. Can you get it for me?" Because I knew the guy that still had it. So they like met up in Oaxaca and like the my art homie brought it back to Atlanta when he came back. And I was like, bro, this has been a journey.
Man, coming in clutch.
I
But
know. I was like, "Ow."
but
Yeah, it almost tore me up when like I thought I was never gonna see it again.
I mean now you have it like just clutched.
So for
Man,
real.
interesting. So one more reference I have to your interview, or maybe a question I have from it. I know that you said that Atlanta prepared you to go and tackle the rest of the world, but how has these experiences um, equipped you to come back and tackle Atlanta? And I'm curious as to like, because it felt like from what you were telling me, you just connected a lot of loose ends, like things that didn't quite make sense, things that you didn't quite understand, things that you had, almost even given up on or just called it like coincidence, something with nature or whatever, and they all just kind of were able to be cleared in your mind and kind of made whole and assimilated within you. And I know that you're really big on expressing yourself through your work. And so I'm curious as to, what type of influences do do those experiences have on you now, and what do you hope people get? What do you hope people are seeing in your work nowadays?
The travels equip me with finding my voice. I think that's the biggest thing. I think through those travels and all the experiences that I had, I think I found my voice. And it gave me the courage, but also like the desire to want to share like my story with people. Like coming back, one of the first art projects I had was that opening at Atlanta Contemporary for the exhibit I was telling you about, the Piel con Piel. And during the artist talk for that, that was the first time I ever spoke about like my immigration experience and like how I got to the US and like, my experience growing up here in America as an immigrant. And I had never publicly like spoken about that before. Um, so I think like going home, and not even just that, but like all the traveling that I did, the connections that I had with people, like it was always a constant cycle of like I'm in a new place, I'm getting to know new people are getting to know me. So it was like constantly like retelling my story in different ways. So I think it really helped me find my voice a lot. And in turn, that helped me find my voice through my artwork. Like it became clear the things that were important for me to share through my art, whether it be like my indigenous culture or my experiences like traveling, even like the style of artwork, I think. I was inspired a lot by like the street art in Mexico and how it was like super vibrant and like very bold, even when it came to like politics. Like people in Mexico are not scared to like speak their mind through their artwork, politically even. There was a lot of street art that was solely political. Like I saw a lot of like Trump artwork in Mexico and I was like, whoa, I want to see this on the streets of Atlanta, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it definitely like helped me find my voice, helped me find courage to speak and about the things that I felt were important to me. I think every piece is different, every piece I have like a different goal for like what I want people to take away. But I think in general, I want people to be curious about other cultures that, normally wouldn't be portrayed here. I want them to be curious and have conversations about like politics or about like mental health. So I think really just like through my artwork, I hope that people have difficult conversations that they normally wouldn't have, just because they saw something on a piece of artwork that I did that might spark curiosity, whether like I have it with them or they have it alone, through reflection, or if they're having it with somebody else. Like I really hope that it sparks meaningful conversation and like curiosity.
Hmm. I have this feel whenever I go and travel places. It just expands my mind and it makes the things around like in your everyday life seem so much smaller. And usually the further away I go or the longer I stay away, the stronger that effect. I'm curious if that's the case for you and like do you think that people are taking certain things like just too seriously in their everyday life? Cuz even what you talking about like you used to be a big planner and now like you're able to feel more comfortable with like less preparation. Like do you feel like people are just like too like too stuck to certain things? What do you think people should take less seriously?
Mm. I think the pressure that we put on ourselves, because it kind of ties in with like the whole planning aspect, like being a planner versus just going with the flow. I think taking away the pressure of expectations that you have for yourself and just kind of like going with the flow and um just going along with whatever comes your way. And I think that opens you up to like being super malleable and like um I don't know, I think it opens you up to try new things too, you know? So I think specifically like as artists, once we find like a medium that we get comfortable with, we tend to like want to keep doing that one thing. But I think if you take everything a little bit less seriously and you approach it more in a way of like like playing, almost like, approaching things with that like childlike wonder, childlike mentality of like, it's okay. Things don't have to be perfect. Things don't have to be fully planned. So I think really taking ourselves less seriously and just having fun.
Giving yourself more room to like change, just like that wall in EAV.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's beautiful. Man, thank you for this conversation. I think this has been incredibly eye-opening. And I always knew I always knew that you would have like that you've had a good story, but I never really knew it in depth like I do now. And like it's been so eye opening and so like nourishing even to me to learn your story, and it inspires me to dive deeper into my culture, into the things that make me me, or my own ancestry, and just see like what has come before me and what's really like deeper within. And I think it's an amazing story and message that you've put out for other people too. So just want to thank you for being on here and for doing that. And I think that that especially with the types of things that you're learning about yourself and the ways that you're already putting it in your art, I think that your future is going to be super bright.
Honestly, like I love having these types of conversations. Like I know we've talked about this before where like we see each other at events and it's like, superficial, not like in a bad way, but like, oh, what are you working on? What are you doing? But like to have conversations where like we learn more about each other, like they're so special. So I just really am grateful for you too for creating this safe space and just having these questions, like typically people wouldn't thing to ask. So there's a lot of thoughtfulness in what you're doing, and I really appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I'd like to have you give everybody a proper outro to see where where people can find you, if they want to see more of your work, if they want to contact you, uh, if there's any way they can support you, or if they want to catch you in person at a show or anything like that. Where can people find you?
Yeah, for sure. So firstly, I just want to invite everybody to our show this weekend on June 14th. So it's going to be at iDrum Gallery, which is off Ralph David Abernathy. It's gonna be really dope. Definitely come out. It's for the Revolt show. We're gonna be out there from 6 to 11. So if you want to connect in person, that's where I'll be. And then outside of that, really, I guess Instagram is the best form of contact. And my Instagram is at pato.paints. That's pato.paints. And yeah, I mean, we can connect through there. I think I have my email linked as well. So that would be the best place to contact me. I don't really do other social medias. I think I have a TikTok, but kind of like a ghost.
Mm.
But yeah, outside of that, I mean, I'm also pretty active in like, the art scene. I try to go to as many events as possible. And if y'all have like any shows that you would like to invite me to, I love to support other artists as well. So send them my way. I'll definitely come through.
Cool. I put your Instagram in the chat here so that people can go and see it.
Awesome.
But yeah, yeah, this has been great. Thank you once again.
It's a really great time. I feel definitely like this filled my cup in ways that I didn't know that like I wanted or needed.
Man, I'm so glad. I'm hoping that this also helps with like when it comes to just bringing more context to who you are as well. I think that a lot of people like they see work and they're like it's great, and they recognize skill, they recognize color, shape, appeal, things like that. But when you get the context and when you get the lore, it compounds. Like anything you already appreciate, it goes up like 10 because you know what the piece had to go through, or you know what the artist had to go through. And I think
Hmm.
when people buy those paintings for millions and millions of dollars, like they're not buying this painting because it looks cool. They're buying the story a lot of times. They're buying like the story of the artist, the story of the piece. And so I think it's important to get the story out so that people know who's making this work, and why they're making it. It makes the work more valuable too.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. It's definitely like adds a lot of context and substance, like we're so layered, we're so multifaceted and also like multi-dimensional beings that there's more to us than just our art, which is super cool and it comes from such a meaningful place. But as people, like we're so layered and I think it's important to like recognize that and try to get to know the people around you too.
Absolutely. Who I would also like to ask too, who would you recommend come on the podcast in the future? Who would you like to learn from on the pod?
You know, I would really love to learn more. I'm working pretty closely with him right now, but Dosa Kim,
Mm-hmm.
every time we have a conversation, I feel like I learned something new from him, something that I didn't expect. And vice versa. Today we're talking about anime, and I told him that like growing up, I stumbled on like this one anime called Serial Experiments Lane, and he was like shocked. He was like, "What?" But yeah, just like he's so like, bro, that guy's layered. Like he has a life, and I think you kind of have to like ask him the right questions or have those like right conversations at the right time. But to have like somebody sit him down and just like ask him the deep questions, I would be so interested to watch that.
I'll definitely reach out to him and have him on too.
For sure. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun. Everybody have a good night.
All right, see you later.
See ya.
Thank you so much for watching the episode. One of my favorite things about doing this podcast is hearing about when someone resonates with something we said. It's truly the reason I continue to make this happen. Comment down below what stuck with you, and we can continue the discussion further. Also consider liking and subscribing. It helps me bring in more amazing creatives and helps me make this show better for you all every episode. Catch y'all next week.